Thursday night in Stoke. Try playing in a blizzard 220 miles inside the Arctic Circle at the world's northernmost professional club. When Chelsea lost at Tromsø in Norway in the 97-98 Cup Winners' Cup, a massive snowstorm hit at half-time. These two boys and their brooms were absolutely no match for it. We're staying in Scandinavia for Scotland's toughest away day on a windswept cliff in the Faroe Islands. In Euro 2000 qualifying, Craig Brown's men were taken to fishing village Toftir. Kevin Gallagher called the pitch a cowfield and the wind like Pitodry on a bad day. The Faroe Islands part-timers equalised in stoppage time, leading to these absolute scenes, and still one of Scotland's most embarrassing results.
Daft little ground, silly game.
But away trips don't come any tougher than a lung-busting schlep up the Andes to face Bolivia in La Paz. But now the Bolivians have taken home advantage to another level. The country's highest city, El Alto, 4,100 metres above sea level. Grass doesn't even grow up here. Bolivia have not lost here yet. The longest unbeaten run in any professional league ever belongs to Red Star Belgrade, or Crvena Zvezda if you must. They've gone 7 years without defeat at the Rajko Mitic in Serbia's Superliga. Their fans are pretty intimidating as well, but they're not as loud as this mob. Galatasaray's Ali Sami Yen Stadium's officially the loudest in world football. In a derby with Fenerbahce, Galatasaray fans set a Guinness World Record of 131 decibels. That's louder than Motorhead, and pretty tough to carry out your manager's instructions when you can't even hear them. However, our most intimidating away day is in Wales, where cameras can't enter and players can't leave. HMP Prescoed. This prison team was briefly kicked out the Gwent League over concerns about young opposition having to go in there. Now that's a tough place to go.
Early June 1939, Germany, always a tough place to go to.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Willkommen, bienvenue, Fulcher. I forgot Irish there for a second. Welcome once again to Trans-Europe Express, your weekly injection directly into your eyeball of everything that is great and interesting from across the world of football, particularly in the continent of Europe, though we will be going further, both to the United States and to South America, and of course next 3 hours. I'm Danny Kelly, and I'm delighted to join you for what will be the last Trans-Europe Express of 2025. There will be no show without Andy Brassell, and of course the great man is on board as well. Over the next 3 hours, we're bringing you all the major stories from across the continent, looking ahead to 2026 in both the Champions League and the upcoming World Cup. We'll have Mbappe watch and guests from South America, AFCON, and Italy as well. It should be a belting 3 hours. Really, it's a review of the year across the various big leagues in Europe. You're very welcome to it. I guess I'll be wishing you a happy Christmas and a happy season's greeting and towards the new year many times. But just in case you're only listening to this first introduction and I put you off the rest of the show, happy greetings from across the whole of the season, and I hope you all have a brilliant 2026. For now, though, it's Trans-Europe Express looking back on 2025. Good evening, Andy. Hope you've had a great Christmas.
Evening, Danny. I have. How about you?
Yeah, really good, thank you, though I don't think I've struggled quite as much as you with a child's toy.
Oh, well, you say a child's toy.
I do say a child's toy.
You know what? Some of the Lego architecture actually says 18 plus on the box, as did...
That's the IQ requirement, Andy.
I was going to say, as did I've not thought of it like that. As did the that makes me feel ashamed of how long I took to complete it. I received in very Trans-Europe Express style for Christmas a Lego model of the Trevi Fountain, a picture of which I will put on the socials later. But it is very, very Trans-Europe Express. And having spoken to the little minifigure of Neptune from history, European figures from history believe in our show. Can you get your head around?
That is very, very good. It took only 3 days and several turkey sandwiches to put together the model of the Trevi Fountain, which takes us directly back to Italy. This is why we're winning all the awards, isn't it? In the last few weeks, we've been reporting about that Serie A game between Como and AC Milan. It's been on, off, and off. And last week, it was finally confirmed that it will be taking place in Perth, Australia, in the first few weeks of the new year, in a huge break from tradition for Serie A. It's off again. Daniele Fisichella, who's been so brilliant throughout the year, joins us again, our Italian football guru. Benvenuto, Daniele. How are you?
Ciao. Good evening, Danny. Good evening, Andy. And just to reassure the listeners, this is not a tape from last week. It's a new installment in the saga. Probably the last one.
You've got main character energy in a saga. Yeah, you have. Daniele, I don't want to use the Anglo-Saxon epithet that begins with F, but what the hell is going on? What's happened now?
So, Milan Como is not going to be played in Perth in February. It's going to be played at San Siro at some point in mid-February, depending on the fixtures. Basically, the fixture that was announced only 10 days ago to go ahead in Western Australia, that has got called off. And the reason is because the Italian FA and the Western Australian government received last-minute, unacceptable, according to them, financial request from the AFC, the Asian Football Confederation, which basically is the UEFA of the Asia, on this game, and the financial reassurances were a sort of a waiver or a legal disclaimer that the AFC asked in case of potential damages, or if the game, Milan Como, would have broken some of the protocols of the AFC. So basically, the AFC threatened the Australian FA sanctions had they violated rules and protocols, and perhaps even the Australian national team could have faced points deductions into the next World Cup qualifiers. Hence, the request from the AFC was passed on to the Australian FA, and then the Western Australian government and the Italian FA. Because it was last minute, they were deemed unacceptable, and the game was called off.
I'll come back to you about the reactions to this in Italy itself, Daniele. But meanwhile, in Italy, Andy, there's been a really important goal in the game at Atalanta, which might decide who's top at the new year in Italy. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Finally, Lautaro Martinez has broken the deadlock for Inter. It's Atalanta 0, Inter 1. Lautaro, he always comes up with the goods at the right moment. It looked like it was going to be Marcus Thuram in the first half. He had a goal ruled out for offside in the build-up in the first half.
Andy, he looks offside to me again there.
Yet, the man is out with the bag. And when I say the man is out with the bag, you know how they bag the ball with which goals are scored, and so you can bid for it online.
Okay.
That is the moment that tells you it really is a goal.
Yeah, Lautaro looked marginal there.
Obviously, it's a spurious cash grab, although apparently some of the money does end up with charity. But I tell you what, it is very helpful in telling us whether it actually is a goal or not in this age of
Andy, just to go back to the bag, a few months ago I went to the website that sells these balls. Well, there are hundreds of balls unsold. So if you want to buy, the equalizer from Genoa Sassuolo of 2 years ago, you can find it for maybe €100, €200. Every sort of goal gets
Daniele,
back.
you're laughing, but in the back of my mind, I'm making notes. As soon as we've finished at midnight, I'll be on that site buying a match ball from Italy.
Anything, Atalanta's fourth goal against Spezia 4 years ago, I'm sure it's there. So, yeah.
Listen, thank you very much. Look, this game has been controversial because, of course, fans of particularly Milan, because they've got people who watch every game home and away. What's been the reaction in Italy generally to the cancellation of this, what turns out to be a cursed game?
Amid the disappointments of the Italian FA, Lega Serie A, AC Milan in terms of the club, as well as Como, everyone else has rejoiced at the idea that the game was not going to be played in Perth. First of all, the Milan players, as well as Rabiot and Mike Maignan, who've been very vocal against this game be scheduled in Australia. Max Allegri, who in the last few months said he would have much rather prefer to play what is going to be a key game for Milan, who are in the title race really at home. And of course, the fans of both Milan and Como. Como is only an hour away from Milan, from the San Siro, so obviously they would have relished the idea to go and have an opportunity and watch their team playing in Milan. But the authorities of the footballing authorities have been really, really disappointed, because they had invested so much time and so many efforts, but perhaps they jumped the gun. They were over-optimistic, because they did actually agree with the AFC that the referee for this game would have been an Asian one, perhaps bending the rules a little bit. But then the Italian FA demanded to move the entire VAR over to Australia, which would have taken 3 or 4 weeks. Bearing in mind that the Australian League has got VAR since a couple of years now, but the Italians wanted their own VAR. So, there have been a few sticking points and, of course, a sense of disappointment. But probably that goes to show that sometimes when you have to deal with so many different footballing associations, it's not straightforward.
No, I mean, I think we can now announce officially the whole thing's been a farce and a waste of a lot of time, money and energy as well, emotional energy for fans. Daniele, during the rest of the programme, Andy and I will be reviewing the leagues around Europe and picking our stars of the year in various countries. On a personal level for you, who have been the stars of the year in Italian football in 2025?
The centre figure of Serie A last season, a player, no, I don't want to say single-handedly won the Scudetto, but had a very big part in it. You probably understand what I'm talking about. Scott McTominay, 12 goals in Serie A last season. Serie A MVP, best player in Serie A, voted by his colleagues and journalists. Ballon d'Or nominee, thanks to that. And a player that has embedded Italian culture, seems like he's been playing in Italy for a long time, and also has given to Napoli a different dimension. His strength, his physicality, his the fact that a player that used to play in the Premier League comes to Italy, looks like a Rolls Royce, and he does really look great. This season, perhaps McTominay has not quite hit the peaks of last season, but he's still one of the centre figures of Napoli. So for me, he's definitely the star of the calendar year 2025.
I mean, that's fantastic. And Andy, the odd thing here, and it just shows how a change of environment, a change of culture can be so influential for a person. The things that Daniele has talked about there, you could have said a lot of things. I've always liked Scott McTominay as a player, but as a goal scorer, that was not what he did in Manchester.
Yeah, and you know what it is, though? I think what Daniele was saying about everything he embraced in terms of the challenge, the club, the culture. And let's go back some years and think of some big players in the past. And I'm thinking of Corentin Tolisso, the World Cup winner, when he left Lyon the first time, before he went to Bayern Munich. He turned down Napoli because he was a bit scared of living in the city. And other players have been like that as well. And the fact that McTominay got out at the airport and he said, I can't wait for this. And he kind of visibly rolled his sleeves up and said, I'm looking forward to every aspect of this. The club, the pressure, the city, the mania, the life, all of it. And he's been good to his word. I think that's really important as well. And I think it's had a positive effect on him as well, not just raising his profile. But I heard someone saying the other day, what a glow up McTominay's had since he's arrived in Napoli, how he's just, a Manchester United player. And all of a sudden, he's his leading man. He's gone from Liam Neeson to Leonardo DiCaprio.
Scotland have qualified for the World Cup. It's not a coincidence either. Him and McGinn, people like that, have driven that project. Listen, thank you, Daniele. I won't attempt any Italian here, but just to say thank you for all your contributions in 2025. It's been great.
It's been fantastic, and looking forward to 2026 in your company. And it's been great, but the journey continues.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, Daniele.
And looking forward to, as we'll be discussing a little later, Daniele, to the prospect of Italy winning the World Cup in the United States.
We first need to qualify.
I know that feeling. Thanks very much indeed, Daniele. Meanwhile, of course, live sport for you over on talkSPORT 2, the PDC World Darts Championship. Alexander Palace is into its third week now. Watching for talkSPORT, of course, the marvellous Mark Wilson.
Yeah, day 15 here, Danny, and we are loving it. And we've got an absolute cracker in prospect here, because Luke Humphries, the former world champion, racing to a 3-0 lead over the German giant Gabriel Clemens, former semi-finalists here. Clemens looked done and dusted, but a couple of ton-plus checkouts won him the fourth set, and he's just, as you came to me, won the fifth set as well. There's a lot of German fans in here tonight, and they're roaring on their man. You can listen to it live over on talkSPORT 2. Race to 4, it's Humphries 3, Clemens 2.
PDC World Darts Championship update on talkSPORT with Village Hotels. Hit the bullseye this New Year's Eve. Party at one of our New Year's Eve events. 34 locations across the UK. Find out more at villagehotels.com.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. More from Mark as the evening unfolds. And you can hear live commentary of the darts, as he said that, over on talkSPORT 2 here on talkSPORT itself. Andy and I will continue our roundup of what's happened in various leagues, particularly as, with the exception of Italy, there's been no football in the other major European leagues, or if there has, it's already been finished. Next, we'll talk about what's gone on in 2025 in Germany. Germany next, but worth noting the news broke in the last 24 hours that the great and legendary Edison Cavani, who's played for some of the biggest clubs in world football, has announced his retirement from football. So as a result of that, our poll tonight, it's an X-Twitter poll, is this: who was the best South American striker in their prime? And the four names we've given you are Edison Cavani himself, Gonzalo Higuain, Luis Suarez and Radamel Falcao. So it's Cavani, Higuain, Suarez and Falcao, who in their prime was the best of those South American strikers. You can vote in that on X, on Twitter, at talkSPORT, at Danny Kelly Words, or at Andy Brassell, 2 S's and 2 L's. I think that's a tight one. Go and vote and have your say. Listen, thank you for that. So then we turn next to 2025 in Germany, and after a difficult 2024 for the Bayern Giants, it's fair to say that Bayern back in biz would be the kind of headline for 2025. An amazing season for Bayern Munich, Harry Kane, and it should be noted for some of the doubters when he went there, and I include myself in that, Vincent Kompany.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we really need to remind ourselves that a lot of people will say it's Harry Kane's year, and quite rightly so, on the field, because he's been brilliant. And it's not just been the goals, as we've said before. What I think puts him alongside some of the real, genuine greats of world football in the last 10 years is that the numbers are extraordinary, but the numbers don't really describe what Kane does for the team and does for the club. And I think,
don't have to tell me, Andy, watching the current variant of Spurs post Kane.
Danny, I'm merely trying to make you cry here, as well as inform the listeners. So please allow me.
This is revenge for the Trevi Fountain crack, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But I think it seems almost ridiculous to describe what he's done in terms of numbers, because really to arrive with not just doubts over whether he really was an elite European club player in some quarters, which I always found faintly ridiculous.
Ludicrous, yeah.
But that he was able to help Bayern fans and German football society really get over the fact that they paid such a lot of money for him. And that may not seem a big deal to Premier League fans or Premier League clubs, but trust me, in German terms, it was culturally shocking that Bayern went out there and did that, and that he has made that not a discussion, but much less of a discussion. I think is testament to how consistently brilliant he's been, what a leader he's been, what he does, even on the rare occasions that he's not scoring, that he was a team leader, a club leader from the get-go. But I think even with the brilliance of Kane in mind, we have to say this is Kompany's year, because Kompany was genuinely 7th, 8th, 9th choice to get the Bayern job when we go back to the summer of 2024.
Incredible to think about now, but you're right, of course.
Yes, and he's managed to make Bayern completely untouchable again in the Bundesliga, and that hadn't been the case for a couple of years, despite the fact that, you know, you go back to say 2023, where Dortmund tripped over themselves literally on the final day to give the title to Bayern. The fact is that Bayern were on the turn for a while under coaches as big as Thomas Tuchel and Julian Nagelsmann. They really didn't look the part, and Kompany has gone in there and not just change the team, but change the culture, which is so difficult to do at a club like Bayern. And really, I guess it needed someone who has Kompany's temperament. And it's not just really about the tactics, it's more about his demeanour. I mean, it was Nagelsmann himself who said that football coaching is 15% tactics and 85% social competence. Well, Kompany is that written bold. He is someone who has managed to take the drama out of Bayern Munich, which really seemed impossible, to quell the egos, to make everything function just a bit more normally.
To shut up, Andy, the ex-Bayern legends, whether they're on the board or not, because that seems to be where all the heat comes from. Talk to me about who you might consider the contenders. We'll get onto the perennial issue of where are Dortmund in 1 second, but the ones we should be looking at, I suppose, are Leipzig and Leverkusen.
Yeah, I think so. And not just because they played each other to finish the Bundesliga for 2025 last weekend, but really because they are the two contender-ish teams and certainly Champions League level teams who have really had a complete revamp. So you look at Leipzig, they've changed upstairs, they've changed coach, they've changed a heck of a lot of players. Of course, Benjamin Šeško, one of the big exits this summer, and they've spent the money pretty well on players like Jan Diomande, Johan Bakayoko, and they've looked really, really good so far this season, despite losing that last game to Leverkusen. And Ole Werner has done a good job as the new coach. Now Leverkusen is completely different, and that is the one that I accept that people will be really interested in because, of course, double winners, unbeaten under Xabi Alonso, and they were big news when Xabi Alonso was there for obvious reasons, but because he pulled them above being a contender and a club where, you know, there were sort of the trappings of an elite level club, but not really the pressure, not really the sort of grandeur of, you know, some of even what we would think of as middling clubs in Germany, like Hamburg and Borussia Mönchengladbach, who've struggled a little bit on the field in recent years. But I think really how much Alonso had changed the culture was clear from the drama of the start of the season when Erik ten Hag went in there and everything went so incredibly badly and they had to get rid of him pretty quickly. I think that showed how the dimensions of the club and its expectation has changed. And
we'll get on to Dortmund in just a second. I just want to interrupt there. Forgive me, because live sport tends to take precedence. The big darts match, the penultimate match of the night at the Ali Pali is over. Let's get a result and a report from Mark Wilson.
Yeah, Luke Humphries, former champion, is through, but by the skin of his teeth. He's beaten the German giant Gabriel Clemens by 4-2. It should have been 3-3. Clemens, who was 3-0 down, got it back to 3-2. He missed 3 darts to level it up at 3 sets apiece. Humphries stepped in, hit double 16 to level up the deciding set, and then checked out 81 with last dart in hand. Big scare for Humphries, but he is through to the last 16. He'll play either Nathan Aspinall or Kevin Dukes. Coming up next, former 3-time champion Michael van Gerwen takes on the German qualifier Arno Merck. That'll be live over on talkSPORT 2, but Humphries has beaten Clemens by 4-2.
PDC World Darts Championship update on talkSPORT with Village Hotels. Hit the bullseye this New Year's Eve. Party at one of our New Year's Eve events. 34 locations across the UK. Find out more at villagehotels.com.
Andy, we are going to, as we go around each of these leagues, just pick on a story where we kind of wonder, what's the hell's happened to? And this one is unfortunate because it involves a lot of injury. But what does the 2026 hold for Victor Boniface? On his day, one of the best strikers in Europe.
Yeah, and a huge part of that Xabi Alonso double-winning team. Now, it was a kind of fairy tale when he made it as a double winner in Germany because you go back to his time in Norway with Bodo Glimt, 2 cruciate knee ligament injuries that looked like they might dim his potential. And then, after coming through in Belgium at Union Saint-Gilloise, he was really smashing it in the Bundesliga and the Champions League for a bit. It slowed up a little bit last season, and if you think at the start of 2025 they tried to sell him to the Saudi Pro League, that fell through when it turned out he was only the backup option for Ivan Toney, and Ivan Toney went in instead. And that felt like a sliding doors moment for both of club and player, really. Now, they loan him because they don't really feel that the fitness is there to Werder Bremen for this season. And we're at the point where he started 2 Bundesliga games and he's not played a whole 90 minutes yet. So he was advised by Leverkusen to go and get knee surgery to sort himself out. And in the words of Bild, prolong his elite level career or save his elite level career. And the conservative treatment obviously hasn't worked. Bremen and Leverkusen are talking about it again. Bear in mind, he's only just turned 25.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But someone who's got the gifts that he has, the strength he has, the wit he has on the ball, as well as being such a good finisher, I think it would be a real shame if he wasn't able to get back to the level. So I really hope, regardless of what it means for Leverkusen in terms of money, that Boniface gets back to the level that he's capable of, that he does get the right treatment, that he does make the right medical decisions, and we see him back in action sooner rather than later.
Obviously, talent denied by injury is my pet peeve in professional football.
It's the worst.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to choose in each of these leagues our star of the year. And mine is not a player, but a manager, and a wonderfully named Merlin Polzin. of course, just 35 years of age, and a local man who took over when Hamburg was still bouncing their head off the glass ceiling of getting out after all those years. And of course, they're a major club out of the second tier. He was appointed as a temporary coach, did so well there that he was given the job permanently, got them promoted, and I think it's fair to say, Andy, they look like a perfectly well-established mid-table Bundesliga team already. The Bundesliga, Hamburg obviously needs to be in the top level, and the Bundesliga needs those big clubs in the real north of Germany as well. So what Merlin Polzin has done there is in stark contrast to some of the biggest coaching names in German football who in the previous decade had failed to get similar results at Hamburg. He's my star of the year. Who is yours?
Well, mine was going to be Michael Elise, because I think he's gone from...
Because you love him.
I do love him, and he's gone from great player to superstar level this year. And I think 2026 is going to be his year for Bayern and France. But a story that's emerged this evening that I wanted to recognise in Star of the Year. Do you remember roly-poly goal machine, Ailton, who scored all those goals for Werder Bremen when they won the double, a bit like Leverkusen, unexpected in 2003-2004. It turns out that he's finally got his Bundesliga top scorer trophy back. You may remember from Harry Kane receiving his that it's a very fetching sort of little cannon ornament. Which
how very unlikely for Harry, but there you are.
A lot of amusement on social media when Kane received that. But Ailton had it nicked off him by his previous agent, who said that he owed him money, and then tried to put it on eBay, where before Ailton got the bidding stopped on that, it reached €600,000. Now, it passed to another agent. That debt apparently passed to the new agent as well. Ailton has been pictured on Instagram today with the trophy. He's got it back, and he says, I'm never going to let it go again. And neither am I going to say how much I paid for it.
Well, wonderful. Thank you very, very much indeed. Coming up next, we'll be looking at what happened in 2025 in France, which ends with, astonishingly, a three-way title race.
26k for 2026 on talkSPORT.
Yeah, talkSPORT is already looking ahead to an exciting year of 2026 and will bring all that will bring, and we're giving you the chance to win a massive £26,000. What better way to kick off 2026 with some serious cash? Yep, 26 grand. It's our biggest New Year cash giveaway, and it could be yours rather. So it's 26k for 2026, and here's how to enter. For your chance to win, text WIN, W-I-N, to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or call 0345 423 9761. Lines close at 12 p.m. on the 9th of January 2026. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. It's UK residents only and 18 plus. This is a network promotion, and the full T's and C's are at talksport.com/win. So for your chance to win, just text that word WIN to 83338. Do it now. Good luck, everyone. Andy, it's a talkSPORT tradition to smash very quickly through France. And here we are doing it again. It will be churlish not to say it's been a great year for Paris Saint-Germain, of course, European champions for the first time. But at the end of 2025, we can safely say that there is an actual living, breathing and real title race in that country.
Yeah, and arguably you could say this is the best thing to come out of 2025 for French football. Now, part of that obviously owes to everything PSG put into the first half of the year. The fact that they did play every game possible last year. The fact that they did play the Super Cup final after being back in training for less than a week. All those other things that have made injuries and little hold-ups more predictable and pulled them towards the pack. But I think with all of these mega clubs and who tend to dominate the domestic leagues, if they do have a little slip, you have to have teams who are good enough, who are ready to receive the opportunity. And Marseille have been that for a lot of this season, and Lens increasingly in recent weeks have been that. Lens, of course, remarkably lead the league for the first time in 21 years, but they've stayed there. And remember, 21 years ago, in August 2004, who cares who's top in August? That doesn't even make any difference to anyone, really. Whereas this is the real deal. Them going into the winter break, top of the league, on probably about the 10th, 11th budget in the league is an extraordinary effort by them. And it's really good for the league.
Yeah, and the other thing I think that might be good for the league, or you'll explain more, is the end, well, hopefully, to the chaos surrounding over the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years of French football, of their on-off, good, bad, destructive TV deals. Because Ligue 1 have become the first of the big leagues in Europe to do what I think they'll all end up doing, which is to take control of their own television rights and to be the actual conduit by which people see their live football.
Yeah, they have. Look, there's been a strong feeling in a lot of places that leagues, including the Premier League, should do it, should really be master of their own televisual destiny, if you like. But the fact is, France and Ligue 1 have been forced into this by decreasing returns from rights, really, and decreasing reliability in their television partners, really, has driven them to this point. Now, look, Ligue 1 Plus has done okay, actually. This is basically where you go on the Ligue 1 website and you buy for like €10 a month or well, it's £10 a month in the UK, rights to watch all the live games. And there's been, I think, a pleasant surprise at the amount of take-up at the first bit of the season. It has hit a bit of a mini ceiling for the moment. So it was 1.08 million at the moment. They were hoping to reach 1.15 at the halfway stage. So it's decent. They're hoping to reach 2.25 million subscribers by the end of the fourth season. But of course, this is a long time to go without any TV money up front. So quite how sustainable this is the question. And I guess, like you were saying, for a lot of other European countries, France is kind of a guinea pig, really, because all the French clubs at the start of the season were told, in your budgets for the season, you're not allowed to include any TV money. In this day and age, big business likes certainty, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, but they couldn't carry on as they were. And Andy,
No.
in our oh my gosh, mon Dieu, what's happened to them section in France? I don't think we have to look very far beyond Nice. It wasn't like Jim Ratcliffe was leading them to world glory before he took over Manchester United, but now I'm not going to call it neglect because that's probably illegal, but a lack of focus has sent Nice into a complete tailspin.
I don't know if it is illegal, if it's this obvious. I mean, it's definitely gone from disinterest.
I'm trying to save your job, Andy.
Well, I don't know. Can you say in terms of? I'd rather get it right grammar-wise, and I'm not sure you can find a level below disinterest without going to neglect.
The N word, yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult. But look, I think it's had a really damaging effect for the club. It's been very poorly managed, and of course that antipathy has really affected matters on the pitch. They've had a coach who is one of the best coaches in Ligue 1 over recent years, Francaise, and it's got to such a stage where they've had 7 successive defeats in Ligue 1. The season seems too early in the season really for that to be possible. And then you look at the fact that they've not won for 18 games in a row in European competition, which obviously was meant to prop them up financially. The fact that they've devalued a lot of their players, they've been, almost open warfare with the fans, which has pushed a lot of those players to the edge. And now Francaise, one of the best coaches in recent years in France, like I said, he's gone, and he's going to be replaced by Claude Puel, who left under a massive cloud going back to 2016 and has not coached anyone since 2021. So good luck with that.
My star of the week in France is a familiar name to Premier League followers, although from some time ago, Florian Thauvin. Don't forget, he's still only 32 years of age, but he's at Lens these days, having had a couple of rough years in the sort of outlier expensive league that is Mexico. But he's come back to France, and with Lens, he has been so good this year. He's got them to the top place, as Andy mentioned, by Christmas and now into the new year. It's not just his goals and assists, he's obviously a great leader as well of that team. And so much so that in the most competitive sport on earth, getting into the French World Cup squad, he's now got a decent chance of making it. It was in their most recent selection. So Florian Thauvin is my star of the year in France. Who is yours, Andy?
Rather obviously, I've gone for Michel Kang, the chair of Lyon, succeeding John Textor. And I think succeeding John Textor really tells you everything about how brilliant she's been. She's become a very influential figure in French football already, because she was already in charge of the very successful OL Lyon, as they're now called, women's team. But now she's taken the men's team as well. And after saving them from administrative relegation, has really assembled a team on buttons that has got them into a reasonable place. And with her actually getting Endrick to come and join the club for 6 months, as we might talk about later, they can even push towards those Champions League places.
Thank you very much indeed. Next up, 2025 in Italy, including new leaders in the last 5 minutes. You're listening to Trans Europe Express. Yeah, we're really rumbling through these roundups of the 2025 year in various countries. We'll also be looking forward later in the show to what may happen in 2026 in both the Champions League and the World Cup. I'm Danny Kelly, he's Andy Brassell. And Andy, before we look at what happened in Italy throughout the year of 2025, we have new leaders. Yet again, it changes every 20 minutes at the top of Serie A.
Yeah, we do, and that's why we all love it in the last couple of years.
Yeah, amazing.
Since Juventus's dominance was broken. Inter atop, full time, Atalanta 0, Inter 1, and really it felt like one of those games, even though Inter had the upper hand, where it was going to take a mistake for them to open the score, and that's exactly what happened. Midway through the second half, Atalanta's most experienced defender, Berat Jimshiti, didn't look, playing a sideways ball, and it ended up falling to Lautaro Martinez onto the left foot, smashed it into the far corner, 1-0 for Inter. They had that goal from Marcus Thuram disallowed in the first half. Few little scrapes towards the end, not least a disallowed goal by Gianluca Scamacca, the former West Ham striker, that was clearly offside, but nevertheless a little flutter for Inter. They are back on top of the table.
That said, I think the Italian team we have to talk about in 2025 is definitely, Daniele Fisichella presaged this with his praise for Scott McTominay, but we must talk about the way Napoli have gone about their business this year. You know that I've had my problems because of his tenure at Spurs with Antonio Conte, but it's all credit to him and to his players what they've done this year.
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, he took them over in 2024 after one of the feeblest title defences that we can remember in recent times. They got through 4 coaches and everything that could go wrong did go wrong. They finished 10th, and it's very hard to completely avoid European qualification in Serie A these days, but that's what they managed to do in that 4-coach season.
Huge for Antonio, that, of course. He loves that.
He does love that. I mean, it set the ground for him, but still, I think... Even if we say that Conte only takes a job under certain conditions, that he's, maybe a 1-game-a-week coach, whatever else we want to say, pulling Napoli up from where they were, and post-Osimhen, post-Kvaratskhelia, of course, he only had half season of Kvisha Kvaratskhelia as well. He did do a remarkable job, and we look at them at the end of this calendar year. They're really close at the top. They're very much in the title race, even though they're in third place, 2 points behind the leaders, which is already a much better defence than last time. And considering they've had a few little bits of friction, not everything's gone the way they've wanted in the Champions League. And would it be Conte if it had? I suppose you could ask. They've ended this calendar year with a win at Cremonese today, 2 goals from Rasmus Højlund, another player who they're knocking into great shape. Remember, still only 22, and a player is there. There's no doubt about that. And also, he played a massive part in them winning the Supercoppa, as they did out in Saudi, beating Bologna in the final, of course, having beaten Milan very comprehensively in the semi, which we talked about last week. Another trophy for them. And Conte had this to say, actually, after the game. He said, "We celebrate a wonderful year where, in my view, we did something truly unexpected and extraordinary with the Scudetto, then capped it off with the Supercoppa. It was such a great calendar year, full of satisfaction, and the celebrations in Naples are truly different to other places." Then, of course, he goes on about, we're facing numerous problems this season. He's actually not fibbing. They've got a ton of injuries at the moment, but nevertheless, they found solutions, at least domestically. And we talked about how great it is to have a title race in France. We always have a title race in Italy, but I think it's going to be a huge title race in Italy this season with a few proper contenders.
Well, the team deposed from the top of the table by Inter in the last few minutes is their neighbours, Milan, AC Milan. They won 3-0 at Verona this weekend. They're getting, players that they have loaned starting to get up to speed. Christopher Nkunku played and scored twice. They're getting more reinforcements in. Nicholas Füllkrug, yet another forward, either destroyed by or unable to make an impression at West Ham, and was in the stands. But the big news for them, I guess, Andy, is that their talisman and great goalkeeper, Mike Maignan, looks like he's going to escape the clutches of the Premier League.
Yeah, and that's absolutely huge for them. He's out of contract at the end of the season, very close to joining Chelsea last summer, of course. And someone we talked about players who you can't just quantify in statistics with Harry Kane. That's the same with Mike Maignan, a real leader for club and country. They desperately need him, and they're offering him a big wage. If he meets some easily attainable bonuses in terms of appearances, he should be up there by the terms of this contract, level with Rafael Leao as the top earner, around about the 7 million net mark, which is exactly what he wanted. I think he always wanted to stay. He just wanted to make sure he was correctly remunerated for doing so, which is fair enough. But the Nkunku thing is interesting because when we're talking about money, you said loan, Danny. He's actually a permanent transfer.
You're absolutely right. Yep.
No, I think we have to talk about that, and you're right to restate that, because they paid 37 million euros for him, which is a hell of a lot of money for an Italian club at the moment. And you know what? Those 2 goals today was first Serie A goals. So he desperately needed those. Now, Max Allegri kind of predicted it before kickoff. He said, look, there's a lot of speculation around him, because speculation that Milan were trying to get rid of him already. But he said, he's a great guy, he's working really hard for us, and I think the breakthrough is going to come today. And it turns out that Uncle Max was right.
So in our slot of, but on the other hand, it's not an exaggeration. I'm prone to exaggeration, as you know, I've said it millions of times. I'm prone to exaggeration, but it is not such to describe Fiorentina's campaign as a disaster.
It absolutely is, and they finally got off the mark last week with a win against Udinese, 5-1. So I think from a distance it looks quite spectacular, and you're reminded of the fact that they've got good players. We have to say, in that game, Udinese went down to 10 men. The goalkeeper was sent off after like 7 minutes. So that clearly had an effect on it. I watched the game yesterday at Parma, and they were thoroughly awful. Deserved to lose by more than the 1 goal they did. And even though they've already been through a coach, the previously very successful Stefano Pioli, who had great credit in the bank, not just on a sporting level, but on a human level in Florence. It went so badly in the first 10 games of the season they had to get rid of him. They've gone to Paolo Vanoli. Performances haven't really improved. And of course, what better guy to sort that out than a new sporting director, Danny?
Yeah, who signed a contract at Spurs 10 weeks ago, and is now required to turn around. He's been offered forget about the money. He's been offered tremendous power at Fiorentina, but Fabio Paratici, I mean, to be fair, Andy, I always thought it was odd that Spurs had 2 sporting directors, and don't forget he was a Daniel Levy man. So I'm not that surprised that he's off, although it may leave Spurs in a little bit of a mess at the start of the transfer window. But it does seem odd that you're relying on a sporting director to turn around problems that are evident on the field just now. But, you know, that's where Fiorentina are.
Yeah, I think so. And it looks like he might start that by getting rid of Vanoli. And, of course, they've still got Stefano Pioli under contract, so they might even try and persuade him to come back. Thiago Motta has been mentioned as well. It occurred
to me yesterday that would be literally that move of getting your old manager back would come with a big stamp saying "Made in Italy," wouldn't it? Fabrican Italia, yeah.
It would. And the other thing we have to say is, the thing that is not just very Italian, but very Florentine, is that idea of the sporting director having a lot of power. So we go back to Daniele Prado, we go back to Pantaleo Corvino back in the day. They've really got a history in Florence of the sporting director being powerful, pulling the strings, shaping the squad and making them successful. And success at the moment would just be avoiding relegation.
Listen, because Daniele chose his Italian football stars of the year, and Scott McTominay, we'll just do stars of the week because there has been football. This is a name, wow, writ large in Italian and world football history. But my star of the week is Louis Buffon, the son of Gigi Buffon, the legendary Italian goalkeeper. He came on as a sub for Pisa against Juventus yesterday. It was absolutely huge. He's a goalkeeper himself. His mum was there, taking all the photographs, crying and all the rest of it. Now, I mention that because she's important in this story, because Mrs. Buffon is Czech, and Louis himself has declared for Czechia at international level. So we're 1 or 2 international goalkeeper injuries for Czechia away from him, playing against the Republic of Ireland in the World Cup qualifiers in the early part of the new year. I don't think I'd want to face a Buffon in those games. Who is your star of the week in Italy, Andy?
Well, as the Englishmen are taking over Serie A, I've gone for Keenan Davis of Udinese. He's been there.
You're not including Scott McTominay in that, are you?
No, I'm not. He's had his moment. But I think Keenan Davis is really interesting because, of course, he was at Villa, he was at Watford, and then obviously he was going to end up at Udinese for a bit, but he's stayed. He's steadily improved. They're being propelled by a very, very good Nicola Zaniolo at the moment, but they were losing going into the final seconds against Lazio yesterday. And Davis, who's having his best season at Udinese so far, already up to 5 goals with a fantastic equaliser in those final seconds to get them a point against Maurizio Sarri's side.
Listen, thank you very much indeed. More from Andy and I in the next couple of hours. We continue to review and preview this year and next, but the live sport continues over on talkSPORT 2. You can hear the last big match of the night at the PDC World Darts Championship in North London. Watching for talkSPORT, Ian Danter.
The three-time world champion Michael van Gerwen currently on the hockey. The number 3 seed has already taken the first set against the man making his debut at these championships, Arno Merck from Germany, who did dispatch Peter Wright, a former world champion, 3-0 in the last round. He's very nearly taken the first leg of the second set with a 150 out shot, but van Gerwen, who looked neat and tidy in the first set, has just pinned the first leg of the second set with 8-8. Wins tonight for Jan van Veen, the world youth champion, and former world champion Luke Humphries, who struggled against Gabriel Clements. And as you mentioned, Danny, all the rest of the action from tonight's game is on talkSPORT 2, the talkSPORT app, and the talkSPORT Darts YouTube page.
PDC World Darts Championship update on talkSPORT with Village Hotels. Hit the bullseye this New Year's Eve. Party at one of our New Year's Eve events. 34 locations across the UK. Find out more at villagehotels.com.
Yeah, we've rocketed through that first hour. Thanks for being with us. We know you could be doing much better things in this strange period between Christmas and the New Year. But Andy and I will do our best to entertain and inform you going forward. It's still 2 hours to go here on Trans Europe Express. After that, we'll be back very soon after we get some news and sport headlines for you.
What football ground are you thinking of when someone says this?
Really tough place to go. Difficult place to go. Such a tough place to go.
It's a tough place to go at the moment.
It was a really difficult place to go, always.
But what are the toughest places to go, really? We've scoured the planet to find out. Forget a cold, wet Tuesday night in Stoke. Try playing in a blizzard 220 miles inside the Arctic Circle at the world's northernmost professional club. When Chelsea lost at Tromsø in Norway in the 97-98 Cup Winners' Cup, a massive snowstorm hit at half-time. These two boys and their brooms were absolutely no match for it. We're staying in Scandinavia for Scotland's toughest away day on a windswept cliff in the Faroe Islands. In Euro 2000 qualifying, Craig Brown's men were taken to fishing village Toftir. Kevin Gallagher called the pitch a cowfield and the wind like Pitodry on a bad day. The Faroe Islands part-timers equalised in stoppage time, leading to these absolute scenes, and still one of Scotland's most embarrassing results.
Daft little ground, silly game.
But away trips don't come any tougher than a lung-busting schlep up the Andes to face Bolivia in La Paz. But now the Bolivians have taken home advantage to another level. The country's highest city, El Alto, 4,100 metres above sea level. Grass doesn't even grow up here. Bolivia have not lost here yet. The longest unbeaten run in any professional league ever belongs to Red Star Belgrade, or Crvena Zvezda if you must. They've gone 7 years without defeat at the Rajko Mitic in Serbia's Superliga. Their fans are pretty intimidating as well, but they're not as loud as this mob. Galatasaray's Ali Sami Yen Stadium's officially the loudest in world football. In a derby with Fenerbahce, Galatasaray fans set a Guinness World Record of 131 decibels. That's louder than Motorhead, and pretty tough to carry out your manager's instructions when you can't even hear them. However, our most intimidating away day is in Wales, where cameras can't enter and players can't leave. HMP Prescoed. This prison team was briefly kicked out the Gwent League over concerns about young opposition having to go in there. Now that's a tough place to go.
Early June 1939, Germany, always a tough place to go to.
Yeah, welcome back to second hour 3 of tonight's edition of Trans Europe Express, your last Trans Europe Express of the year 2025, which is why we're kind of both looking back at what happened in the big leagues and picking our stars of the year in some of those leagues, and looking forward to the big tournaments coming up in the next few months, including the Champions League and the World Cup, which Andy and I will get stuck into in about half an hour's time. I'm Danny Kelly. With me, as I say, is Andy Brassell. But most important, and I say this without trying to be eggy, is you, the listeners, because while Andy and I would probably be on the phone talking to each other about these matters anyway, it is your presence that renders it both meaningful and, frankly, remunerative as well. So thank you very much for listening in. Welcome once again, everybody, to Trans Europe Express. Okay, Andy, let's just tell people we will be looking back on 2025 in Spain. And as I say, we'll also be looking forward to the Champions League, what might happen, and also to the World Cup in the United States, Mexico and Canada. First, though, it's time for the last time this year for this.
Carrière, le Paris Saint-Germain, Mbappe! Mbappe! Little give and go, Mbappe's in! Oh, shoots who! He scored twice in 2 minutes! Tête de Kylian Mbappé. Allez, Kylian!
Andy, you know, we use Mbappe Watch to really to keep a focus on Real Madrid and what they're doing, because there's never a moment without drama, and anyone who's following the putative court case between their former nutritionist and themselves, where she says she was told to stay in her office and not try to mess around with the players. It's an amazing club to follow. But what is true is that Kylian Mbappe, without ever being the most popular player ever to pull on that shirt, had an amazing 12 months. He has turned dross into diamonds in some ways, with no less than, count them. I know you're laughing because we wrote a more Anglo-Saxon headline than that a little earlier. But he has turned it into that with 59, count them, 59 goals.
Yeah, that's right. Equaling Cristiano Ronaldo's calendar year record in that last game of 2025 against Sevilla. And I suppose it's, in one way, a sign of his renaissance. And in another way, it's maybe a bit of a knock on the way it's gone for him at Real Madrid so far, because it feels like a lot of personal excellence, but not yet any tangible team reward for that. Now, whether that changes in 2026, we'll wait and see. But last season, of course, the numbers were very, very respectable, but Real Madrid were a long way off it in terms of what they actually wanted to do.
Not helped by a terrible rash of defensive injuries, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, which have come back to bite them again this season. But it's felt a lot more, and we'll come on to talk about Xabi Alonso and how he's done so far in a little minute in his first half year at Madrid. But it feels really as if Kylian Mbappe has grown into the superhero costume, that he has spent a lot of this second half of 2025, partly due to the fact that he's got himself unbelievably fit in the summer, propping up this team, which is maybe not desirable from a Real Madrid perspective, but in terms of our superstars are working well perspective, is pretty satisfying.
Regular listeners will know that Andy, who is an absolute, obviously he's the world expert on football, he's also a world expert on basketball, but a little bit behind in his learning about American football, which I know a lot about. Indeed, I've presented it on TV and stuff like that. So Andy, the game that's on at the moment, the New York Giants against the Las Vegas Raiders, on the pitch, the Giants are beating the Raiders reasonably happily. But that, of course, means they're losing overall, because these are the two worst teams statistically in the NFL this year. So what they're playing for is the losers are liable to end up with the worst record of the year, so they will get first choice in the draft coming up. It is better to lose this game in the long run than it is to win it. Now, whether you can convince the home fans of that is a separate issue. But there was a time a few years ago when the great college quarterback was a man called Andrew Luck. And there was a whole load of teams who wanted Andrew Luck but could only get him because he was going to...
So they wanted to suck for luck.
There's the exact phrase people use. You have to suck for luck. I'm not sure I'm not sure who they're trying to get here. But at the moment, the Raiders are winning by losing at home. Put it that way. In contrast, and perhaps you can only have so much glory at any club, to the fortunes of Mbappe improving at Real Madrid, Vinicius was their absolutely number one superstar and hero even as recently as 12 months ago, and that is now all up in the air.
Yeah, and maybe it was always going to be the case that as Mbappe's status rose, Vinicius Junior's status would decline. I don't think through any sense of disrespect, but that's what Real Madrid has always been about. Superstar equilibrium, not everyone being equal. Bear in mind, when you go back to the first Galacticos era of Florentino Perez, while you had guys like Figo and Beckham and Zidane and Ronaldo Nazario earning the earth, you also needed guys like Raul Bravo and Ruben to earn 150k a year, just to, as Emilio Butragueño once said to me, to really tell the superstars what Real Madrid was about. But what that actually meant is financially balance the fact that we're spending a ruinous amount on four players. Yeah, exactly. So, it's never really been about equality, which is part of the issue with what Xabi Alonso is trying to do there. But I think in terms of Vinicius, he is the player that it was always talked about as if it was some tactical conundrum. How could you fit these guys in the same team? Because Mbappe liked to cut in from the left, and But that was Vinicius' best position. Look, they were always going to work it out tactically. How they've not worked it out is ego-wise. That has been the biggest problem. And, you know, I think Real Madrid tried to make Vinny feel like he was special by backing him not just to the hilt, but way, way, way beyond, really to the knuckle in terms of his Ballon d'Or candidacy. But it feels that he's struggled to get over that, and then he's struggled to get over the subsequent loss of status. Now, it was interesting as Roman Planes, who used to work at Barcelona, and now Ramon Planes, he's the director of football at Al Ittihad. He came out in the last day or so and said, look, the Saudi Pro League needs more superstars, but we need superstars not just at the back end of their career, but players who are in the prime years of their career, like Vinny. And when he said like Vinny, he didn't mean like Vinny. No. He meant Vinny, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that has maybe done him a favour in terms of his negotiation with Real Madrid, although the relationship that he's got with the Real Madrid crowd at the moment is a very uncomfortable one, arguably more uncomfortable than anything that Cristiano Ronaldo intermittently went through. Look, everyone who's anyone has been booed by Real Madrid fans whilst being a Real Madrid player. But at the moment, it's a feeling that's building, and it's a real concern. There's no doubt that they need to do something about it. Not necessarily contractually, because, of course, they've got a year and a half to go. That would seem a short time at any other club. But Real Madrid have always been happy to let contracts run down because they back themselves and their pulling power that they believe is beyond any other club in world football to be able to hold on to a player right in the back end of his contract. But I think the pressure is not just coming from one place. It's not just coming from a financial place. It's coming from a status place as well. And I think there are a lot of considerations when we try and work out what the club are going to do next in this situation and what the player's going to do next.
And at the risk of being a ghoul and trying to sort of commentating on a man walking a plank, what does Xabi Alonso's 2026 look like to you, Andy?
Well, it's pretty clear. Win the Champions League or be gone, I think, or win the Champions. Win the Champions League and maybe you still will be gone. I don't know. Look, I think the most important thing, Xabi Alonso is not going to be the coach of Real Madrid for 5 years. I don't think that is even possible with the way that he wants to do it. Now, if you think of someone who is the antithesis of polishing, preening superstar egos, another coach who, despite being stylistically very different from Xabi Alonso, previous Real Madrid coaches like that, is Jose Mourinho, of course. Now, he took the completely different approach to this, the fight fire with fire, not the my way or the highway so much as you take me on. If you come in with your tank, I'm going to come on with a whole Imperial Starfleet tomorrow. You know, that was his view. Whereas Alonso is not like that. He always hopes that common sense and reasonableness and us all being adults will out. Now, I'm not sure that that's realistic at Real Madrid. I think the only real question is exactly how this ends rather than necessarily when it ends. And, you know, how high can he hold his head when he leaves? And that will be governed by, I don't think it will be governed by La Liga, although winning La Liga would be nice and notable, of course, because they're facing a very good Barcelona team at the moment. But the real question is, can they get it done in the Champions League? Because even under Carlo Ancelotti, who's been there, seen it, done it and got the T-shirt, they were so far off last season. It might be unrealistic, but it's definitely something that's on the menu, as always.
And I want to end this section, Andy, by talking about Endrick. We talked last week about how this, well, potential genius young South American has not yet been given a chance at Real Madrid, and so he's gone, to your no doubt great delight, to Lyon. His arrival there, it's fair to say, has not gone unnoticed.
No, it is not. Endrick mania is happening. There's no doubt about it. They never say fall in love with a lone player. But even if you sort of take that as read. Maybe you can fall in love with a lone player before he's made his debut. I don't know, because I think the way it's been choreographed by his team is very, very good. I think Lyon have played it very well on social media. Bear in mind that the highest watched clip they'd ever had on Lyon Instagram, on Olympique Lyonnais Instagram, before the last week and a half was when Tyler Morton signed, which got about 3 million. This has got about 10 times that. Which tells you something. Him and his wife have played it quite well as well, taking lots of footage and photos of them frolicking in the snow in nearby Switzerland, very much like George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley at this time of year, which is beautiful to see them respecting British tradition as well as French and Ligue 1 tradition. But he's someone who we don't just think could be a superstar in Ligue 1. We fully expect he will be.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, thank you very much indeed for that. Next up, we'll turn to the wider scope onto, what else has been happening in 2025 in Spain, out with the world of Real Madrid. That's next here on Trans Europe Express. Okay, we've already talked about Real Madrid's 2025. Let's talk about other teams in Spain and in Spanish football in general. We'll get on to the calamity, hello Fiorentina of Valencia, a little later. But Oh, before that, of course, I've gone mad. I need to get back to Alexander Palace, where the last big game of the evening in the darts is going on. Michael van Gerwen is taking on Arno Merck, beneath the eyes of my friend and colleague, and happy Christmas to Ian Danter.
Happy Christmas to you, Danny. Well, Michael van Gerwen is just one set away from a place in the round of 16 and what would be a match against another former world champion in Gary Anderson. He's 3 sets to 1 up against Merck, who, remember, is making his debut at these championships, and he did take the 3rd set off Van Gerwen with a couple of ton plus checkouts, but normal service, you might say, has been resumed with MVG taking the 4th set, so he's just 1 set away from advancing. Wins earlier tonight for Gian van Veen and another former world champion in Luke Humphries, and the rest of this game will play out on the talkSPORT app, the talkSPORT Darts YouTube page, and over on talkSPORT 2 as well.
PDC World Darts Championship update on talkSPORT with Village Hotels. Hit the bullseye this New Year's Eve. Party at one of our New Year's Eve events. 34 locations across the UK. Find out more at villagehotels.com.
Yeah, we'll get you a final report on that game, unless it goes to penalties, from Ian a little later on. Andy, let's talk about Spain in 2025. And despite my worries about sometimes the way they play, and about having a 94-year-old centre forward in Lewandowski, it's been a pretty brilliant 2025 for Barcelona.
Yeah, it has. And you look at not just them winning the title back, but the style in which they did it, the style in which they got to the semi-finals of the Champions League and very, very close to the final, even though I guess a lot of people were denied their dream final of PSG versus Barcelona in Munich in the end. There was the feeling they would be back. The only question about this really was, would they be able to really keep their heads above water financially, and would they be able to maintain the team in this way? Now, I guess they've had 2 pieces of really good news in that direction in this calendar year. Firstly, is the fact that off the field they've moved back to the Camp Nou, which has relieved a bit of pressure for them. Of course, it's not fully open and operational, but they're able to getting a lot more receipts. They're not spending on rent anymore, and all these things do matter to modern day Barcelona. And secondly, on the field and in terms of squad construction, they're able to make the absolute most out of the squad because they've got an unbelievable coach in Hansi Flick. Now, this isn't diminishing the job that Deco is doing upstairs as sporting director, because I think he's doing a pretty good job. But really, when you look at how he's able to get different things out of the same players, I think that's something that really underlined him as a elite level coach of substance when he was at Bayern, and is doing it all over again. Look, if he ended up with a treble this season, I wouldn't be absolutely stunned. It can be done by Barcelona. Now, look, they're only 4 points clear of Real Madrid. They're not walking the league or anything like this at the moment. No. But in the last month or so, they have been absolutely relentless. Now, part of that has been the return to form and fitness, really, of Rafinha. I think that's made a massive job, despite the fact that Marcus Rashford's done very well. He's been excellent for them, and Hansi Flick has been clear. It's been talk in Spain over the last couple of days that Hansi Flick wants to keep Marcus Rashford. That's one of his priorities going into 2026. But I think when you look at a few of the holes that are in that team, and they could definitely do with at least one more central defender, the moves that Flick has made to cover that. So he's coaxed some great centre-back performances out of Gerard Martin, one of the lesser known names. He's basically a reserve left-back. Yeah. And that he's able to do that he's able to bring stuff out of players that they didn't know they could produce, like a Bielsa that wins trophies. It's amazing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, down, the third leg of normally the big teams, that particular stool in Spain, is Atletico Madrid. I don't know what to make of Atletico anymore, Andy, because they seem to be in recent years in permanent transition between that astonishing team of defensive tough nuts and a grit mine that they went into seam after seam after seam during their glory years of getting Champions League finals, only to be denied by Gareth Bale, to where they are now. Although I think the emergence of the manager's son is perhaps giving them a glimpse of maybe a future.
Yeah, and I think maybe for all the players they have signed over the last couple of years and all the players they could sign with, of course, this new ownership, it feels like Giuliano Simeone is the bridge between old Atletico and new Atletico. I agree with you, because he's got all of that grit and grinta. He likes to get involved in situations. He likes to be a pest, as a youngest child always does. He likes to buy fouls.
There's a man with children speaking there. Yeah, very good.
They're always trying to buy fouls, honestly, Danny. But I think...
And Lego.
Yeah, that too. But I think that the fact that he's also perpetually interested in attacking, as well as being able to do the defensive part of his job, is a bridge to this newer Atletico. And they do have exciting attacking players. I think even when they were defensively really sound, and we think of the 2014 title winners and Champions League finalists particularly, they were never lightning on the counter-attack, whereas this team can be, which I think is really interesting. Now, look, if we look at this current Barcelona, which is a beautiful Barcelona, which is the sort of Barcelona that the people all over the world want to see, when they were challenged in the Guardiola and Mourinho era, they went to Mourinho because they thought, well, we can never be Barcelona, so let's be the team that can be the most uncomfortable for them. I think Atletico are gradually going towards that, because I think you've seen little hints in the games between Atletico and Barcelona. That last game they played at the Camp Nou, actually, Barcelona won 3-1 in the end, beating Atletico as they so often do. But Atletico went a goal up. They could have had a second. They've definitely got the players to make the most of that high line. Now, if they can learn to defend just a little bit better, and of course they have rebuilt their defence, and they have been rebuilding their defence over the last little while, so I don't think with the amount of change they've had in the squad we can expect too much too soon. I think they're gradually getting there. And the one message that's coming out of Atletico, even with the new ownership, even with the new sporting director in Matteo Alemany, who did a great job at Valencia and Barcelona before, Simeone's not going anywhere. He celebrated 14 years in charge on the 23rd of December. He's contracted till 2027, and they're talking internally about a new contract for him. He's not going anywhere. Whoever takes over from us in Trans-Europe Express, when we finally cark it, will still be talking about Diego Simeone in charge of Atletico.
It's an extraordinary thought, Andy, and thank you for introducing the notion of our imminent demise into my Christmas celebrations.
You're welcome.
Very quickly, my star of the week star of the year, who thought Antony, when he was transferred from Manchester United to Betis for a loss in his transfer value of, Andy, 73 million euros, you'd have thought that would have broken the spirit of any professional footballer, but he has done the opposite. He's gone on, led Betis to a Conference League final, scored loads of goals, to the point where Isco, their previous talisman, has said that if he tried to go back to Manchester United, he would kidnap him. The crowd love him, his teammates love him, and he has given them a decent chance in the Europa League, and they're challenging Villarreal for a place in next season's Champions League as well, assuming Spain get the extra place. So he, Antony, is my star of the year in Spain. Who is yours?
I'm going to go to Villarreal, actually. Let's keep it East Coast. And it's not going to be the guy who laid the first brick on the new Mestalla when construction restarted for Valencia. They're hoping to have that ready in 2027.
Fantastic.
It's Marcelinho, who has gone back to Villarreal. They say never go back as a coach, but he has gone back, got them in the Champions League last season, has kept them in the title race for most of this, which is extraordinary. Okay, they've been rubbish in the Champions League, but bearing in mind their resources, it's an extraordinary, extraordinary effort.
OK, the darts has finished for the day at Alexander Palace. Let's get a report on the last big match of that day. It comes from Ian Danta.
And Michael van Gerwen is safely through to the last 16. A 4-1 victory over the man making his debut at these championships, Arno Merck, who did rally briefly to get it back with one set with a couple of 10+ checkouts. He can be proud of his efforts here. But van Gerwen is through to face another former world champion, Gary Anderson, in the round of 16. So round 3 is nearly done. There are 4 more round 3 ties which will play out tomorrow on talkSPORT 2, the talkSPORT app and the talkSPORT Darts YouTube channel from 12:30. And by the time tomorrow night is out, Luke Littler will have played his 4th round tie as he bids for back-to-back world titles. It's all happening on your home of Darts on the Radio, talkSPORT 2 from 12:30 tomorrow.
PDC World Darts Championship update on talkSPORT with Village Hotels. Hit the bullseye this New Year's Eve. Party at one of our New Year's Eve events. 34 locations across the UK. Find out more at villagehotels.com.
Yeah, thanks to Ian Danta, Mark Wilson and all the other talkSPORT staff. Of course, it is the holiday season. They're doing an amazing job up there in the upper points of North London at the PDC World Darts. More from them tomorrow, live over on talkSPORT 2. And in reports here on talkSPORT. I'll be with you, actually, between 1 and 4. I'm sitting in for Paul Hawksby on Hawksby and Jacobs. Myself and Darren Ambrose will be trying to entertain and inform you through the early afternoon here on talkSPORT. We'll keep you bang up to date with everything that's happening in the darts. Andy, let's turn from review, which we've been doing so far, to preview of 2026 as we head towards that year. Let's start with the Champions League, shall we? And while I want to call it Who Will Stop Arsenal, I'm sure you'll help me with that a bit later. But what I want to talk about first is what's happened so far, because we've had the sophomore season of the new incarnation of the Champions League, and I think it's been a very different experience from first time round, where the big clubs had no idea how to play this new league format and what kind of points total you would require to qualify in the top 8. I think we've seen a complete change this year with real concentration on avoiding that punishment round.
Yeah, I would agree, Danny. And it's been really leave nothing to chance from the elite clubs. And I think when you look at the way that Arsenal, not just Arsenal, although of course they've been the outstanding team results-wise in the Champions League so far. I think you look at Bayern Munich, you look at PSG, and there's leave nothing to chance. The way that PSG have... Obviously, they're a more accomplished team than they were in the first half of last season's Champions League now. 2025 has been a real watershed for them. I do feel that as well, it has been an attitude of what has happened to us last season is not going to happen to us again. It's almost as if they, Real Madrid, Manchester City, are the cautionary tale that keeps everyone motivated, really, in this season's Champions League. That we don't want to be on the cusp. We don't want to be fighting for our lives in match days 6, 7 and 8. We need to go for this. And you look at the amount of goals that PSG, for example, have scored in this season's Champions League. It's not a sense of let's do the bare minimum and get the results. It's let's absolutely smash a competition, and if we can put our feet up at the end, let's do that. And any time it's felt like one of the bigger teams, and I guess we have to put Manchester City, whether you think they're a genuine, legitimate contender for the Champions League or not, and I think that is a discussion, because they're kind of on the cusp of between yes or no for me. When I last saw them against Leverkusen, I think that was a really good cautionary tale, because any time a team has slackened off for a bit, they've been punished, as they were against Leverkusen that night when I saw them in Manchester. The fact that you can't just coast through this with half a team or a Carabao Cup team. You can't do that. And no. I think that little reminder is going to push them on a little bit and push their competitors on a little bit as well.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the weirdest selections of Pep Guardiola's storied and legendary career, if I'm truthful. Andy, which takes us then to who's going to win it or who are the contenders. I think two things. First of all, I genuinely believe it's wide open. As we sit here in the last dying embers of 2025, I have no strong views about who might win it, in 2026. And of course, a great deal will depend on the draw. But I guess just pulling names out of the hat, PSG are, as you say, a really accomplished team these days. Bayern Munich have got an astonishing array of firepower available to them, which might be improved if Musiala gets back in time for the latter stages of the tournament. Arsenal have shown that they know how to win in Europe. And I think Inter Milan have got a great squad of players. Whether or not they can be great enough for this tournament. Manchester City, I share all your doubts about Manchester City, except I do see them improving. And that's often a sign when Guardiola gets on a roll, he's something else. Where do you think the likely finalists will come from, Andy?
I think obviously it's very draw dependent, as we saw last season. Look, I know that might sound like a bit of a cop out, but I don't think it is, because if you look at Liverpool, who were indisputably fantastic in the group stage of last season's Champions League, and then they drew a great PSG in the last 16, it ended up meaning nothing. So I think, like, when we're, say, floating Arsenal as potential favourites, and I don't think they're quite a team that I would, but they're very capable of winning it. But whether I think they're a favourite at this point, no, I don't think they are, despite the fact they've had an excellent start to the season. I think we always have to bear that in mind. Talking of cautionary tales from this new format of the Champions League, you know, you could, if they were drawn against Bayern, as well as they beat them in the second half of that game at the Emirates in the league stage, you know, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't want them again over a two-legged game in the last 16. So you never know what's going to happen. You know, it could be a PSG. We just don't know. The reward for doing your best and winning your best was really quite small. So I guess the other side of that, though, is you're maybe less likely to get a really difficult team in the last 16, because the biggest teams have taken it so seriously in the league stage this season. So whereas at the bottom of the 24, you had a Real Madrid lurking for Manchester City, or you had a PSG or Real Madrid last season, this season that doesn't look so much like the case. When you look at clubs on the cusp, you're looking at Napoli, really. I think of the big one that are down there, that are finding themselves in proper danger. Obviously, that might change after match day 7, but they're the one that you really have to worry about. And would they be a team that any of the elite clubs would really worry about? I don't think they would, especially because they've got Conte in Europe printed over them in neon at the moment, which means despite the fact that they are on the cusp, the results have been better than the performances, which have been pretty lousy in the Champions League, and maybe that won't change.
Do you think, Andy, that with, PSG, at least, in real terms, have got a race on their hands to win their domestic title? Inter are involved, despite going top tonight, in a very tight race in Italy. Arsenal have had their huge lead in the Premier League eroded. Do you think Bayern being pretty comfortable at the top of the Bundesliga gives them an advantage as we head into the spring?
I don't think we can say that, because there's always a question over whether domestic comfort makes it more difficult to keep up the intensity levels, or whether having to go for the league as well completely tires you out. Now, I don't think we can use Inter being incredibly close to a treble and ending up with nothing. We can't really use that as an example into this season, because Inter have made their squad a little bit younger, and it's clearly made a difference to them. And I think that's another thing that makes them one of the contenders going forward. I mean, the thing that's always going to make Inter a contender.
You think that Lautaro Martinez and Thuram is the best strike combination in the competition? Yeah,
I do. And they're certainly the best front two. And they've got meaningful backup, which they didn't have last season. I think you look at Angelo Amboni, who's been great for them. You look at Francesco Pio Esposito, who's emerged in the last 6 to 8 months. And already is. I think that makes a massive difference to them. And they've got legs in midfield as well. You look at Andy Diouf arriving, players in their early 20s. That makes a massive difference to them. And if they can go on and not concede goals, and obviously they have in the last couple of Champions League games, though no one's going to remember what happened in match day 5 and 6 of the league stage when it gets to the back end of it. I think they're a contender all over again. I think they're a genuine contender. I would say there are probably about maybe 5 teams who could win it. So I would say Arsenal, Barcelona, PSG, Inter,
Bayern.
Bayern. I think that's probably it, really.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, Manchester City are on the cusp for me. It's funny because I think if you look at City, the front part of their team, I would want over pretty much any team out there. But having said that, the back half of the team looks a bit too close to last season's team for comfort for me.
I'll remind you,
not just in terms of personnel, but in terms of form, I would say.
I'll remind you of this prediction in May when the anthem is playing and the Spurs players are puffing out their chest on the side of the pitch.
I look forward to that.
Next up, we'll talk about the World Cup in Mexico, Canada, and of course, the United States.
$26K for 2026 on talkSPORT.
Yeah, talkSPORT is already looking ahead to the exciting year and what 2026 can bring, and we're giving you the chance to win a massive £26,000. What better way to kick off 2026 than with some serious cash? Yep, 26 grand. It's our biggest New Year cash giveaway and it could be yours. It's 26k for 2026 and here's how to enter. For your chance to win, just text that word WIN, W-I-N, to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or you can call 0343 423 9761. The lines close at 12 p.m. on the 9th of January 2026, of course. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. It's UK residents only and 18 plus. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's are at talksport.com/win. So to get your chance now, just text WIN, WIN, to 83338. Do it now. Good luck, everybody. So, Andy, let's then turn our jeweler's eyepiece, if that's the correct phrase, on. I suppose you have to. It is the biggest sporting event of next year, and it's certainly the biggest football event. The World Cup across 3 countries in North and Central America: Canada, the United States, and Mexico. We will get onto the football field and who is liable to win it in just a second, but the surrounding political, cultural tensions thrown up by the way the United States is organising centrally the tournament, illustrated in recent days with a massive row about ticket prices, I think has been illustrated by a spat. For those of you who don't have social media, I'll explain to you. Alexei Lalas was a decent enough footballer who got a very huge reputation by coming to be one of the first USA players to play over here in a major European league in Italy. He was also made noticeable by his Viking shock of ginger hair and ginger beard. He these days is a great supporter of the United States President Donald Trump, and also a big big wig in the world of football in America. And he's been arguing online with Miguel Delaney. We should make a point. I know Miguel. He's a friend of Andy's, works for The Independent, a really brilliant and courageous journalist, particularly about the way football is run around the globe. They've been having a row on Twitter over the last 24 hours that is painful to watch, because when you see someone like Alexei Lalas and many people supporting him saying that ticket prices have to be high because this is a commercial undertaking, that football fans need to understand that they are there to be exploited. And then I thought in the most pathetic thing where he said, really complaining about ticket prices, just European people realising they're not as rich as Americans, where many of the European complaints, including that from the English Football Supporters Association, were saying this is going to exclude people from poorer economies who've qualified, particularly from Africa. It's been painful to watch, Andy. A figure as important as Alexei Lalas talking, to me, such disrespectful and anti-football nonsense.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Danny, and I'm not really sure what I can add to it because you sure. Put it so perfectly. But, I think it's an argument, in fairness to Alexei Lalas, that has not been restricted to him. He's not the only person that's come out with that. It's something that I've seen a lot online. People saying, and we're not saying that this is all American view or all American football supporters' view, but Europeans need to stop complaining. If they don't have the money to come, don't come. And I can't get over how daft that argument is. And when you think as well, so much of what gives colour to American soccer, and I'm thinking of MLS, I'm thinking of teams like Atlanta United, in recent years LAFC as well, teams and clubs that are really given such a great view of American soccer, based on the animation given to it by an immigrant population. That to me makes it even more remarkable, and a lot of those people will be priced out of it. And, people shouldn't have to be poured in the family silver to go and be part of a World Cup. I think you can look at, even in Qatar, for all the moral issues with the World Cup in Qatar, prices are up like well over 150%. I don't know the exact figure, but it's an unbelievable figure. Yeah. It's an unbelievable figure.
And I guess for me, the sadness is that I went to the World Cup the last time it was in the USA in 1994, and the welcome there, and seeing the groups of supporters from all over the world, and American people, enjoying it. And if you couldn't get into it wasn't about affordability. The tickets were just so hard to get hold of for the big games. You could see it in bars where everyone was welcome and all the rest of it. There seems to be a change in attitude and tone that it's not very it's distasteful to me. And no doubt this will continue right up to the start of the tournament. When that happens, Andy, we're into the football. And just like in the Champions League, I think the format is the first thing I noticed. We'll get on to possible winners. And I'm not making out this just as my opinion. This was what you brought up in our pre-show meeting, that we are in the world of modern football here, and this is me complaining again, where people are going to be required to play and watch a tremendous amount of football to lose just a very small number of teams from the tournament.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the case from the group stage, and when you're charging that much to get in, the games might as well be of appropriate meaning. There needs to be some jeopardy, and I get that football wants to be inclusive, even though the prices suggest otherwise. But ultimately, it is a cup competition, and teams have to get knocked out at some stage. That they all make it almost into the knockout stage. I mean, the whole concept we have of a group of death, that basically goes in the bin if loads of third place teams qualify. And I think that's a real shame. The World Cup is not just about people like us that watch football all the time and obsess and pore over every detail of it. This is the world's competition. So this is for people who only watch football every couple of years as well. And all of us, I think, deserve to have a competition where it is edge of your seat, where it is something that grips the whole world. Not, 3 points will probably see us through to the next round. I mean, I think that's a real shame. It's asking a lot of the public, and it's asking a lot of the players as well.
There really is no group of death. At the side of the pitch for these group stage matches, you'll see a load of people with defibrillators. I'm talking metaphorically here, of course. Stretchers and all that. Nobody dies. Everybody goes through. You have to really try hard not to qualify. All right, so then we'll get into the guts of the tournament, Andy. And again, a bit like the Champions League, I think you can make a case for Spain, France with their almost bottomless depth of talent, England because of their firepower, Argentina because they're the champions, and I also think Brazil are a dark horse here. And we'll talk to Tim Vickery very soon about Argentina and Brazil as well. Who are at this stage, and things can change with injuries and form and management and all the rest, who are your favourites?
Spain, France and England are my three. I think the biggest question for England is how and if they incorporate Jude Bellingham into the 11. To me, and I accept that Morgan Rogers has been brilliant. I don't, in recent weeks, I don't think that necessarily precludes Thomas Tuchel from including Jude Bellingham. And of course, Jude Bellingham might be our area on this show a bit more, but to me, even the idea of leaving out Jude Bellingham, whichever role you use him in, is just unbelievable. I can't get my head around it at all. I think the interesting thing with Spain, above all, is they don't necessarily have the best 11 players, but they know who they are more than any other team in this competition, which I think is absolutely huge. Luis de la Fuente has marshalled them really well. On the other hand, there have been questions about Didier Deschamps the whole time, which is remarkable, I suppose, for a World Cup winning manager. But I guess the balance kind of tipped over in the last couple of tournaments to you're a World Cup winning manager, therefore you are immortal, to you have had a decade and a half of unbelievable players and this is all you've won us. Which incredible. I think is an interesting place to be in. So in terms of not just French football and, Mbappe, who's just turned 27 and what his legacy might be, in terms of Didier Deschamps' legacy, because we know he's going at the end of the tournament and will be succeeded by Zinedine Zidane, I think this is a pretty big tournament for his legacy.
It's going to be, once we get over the issues that we've talked about again and again and again, and once we get some of the lesser nations have had a lovely run, but we get down to the crux of the thing, it's going to be absolutely brilliant. And of course, you'll hear just tons of it here on talkSPORT.
What football ground are you thinking of when someone says this?
Really tough place to go. Difficult place to go. Such a tough place to go.
It's a tough place to go at the moment.
It was a really difficult place to go, always.
But what are the toughest places to go, really? We've scoured the planet to find out. Forget a cold, wet Tuesday night in Stoke. Try playing in a blizzard 220 miles inside the Arctic Circle at the world's northernmost professional club. When Chelsea lost at Tromsø in Norway in the 97-98 Cup Winners' Cup, a massive snowstorm hit at half-time. These two boys and their brooms were absolutely no match for it. We're staying in Scandinavia for Scotland's toughest away day on a windswept cliff in the Faroe Islands. In Euro 2000 qualifying, Craig Brown's men were taken to fishing village Toftir. Kevin Gallagher called the pitch a cowfield and the wind like Pittodrie on a bad day. The Faroe Islands part-timers equalised in stoppage time, leading to these absolute scenes, and still one of Scotland's most embarrassing results.
Daft little ground, silly game.
But away trips don't come any tougher than a lung-busting schlep up the Andes to face Bolivia in La Paz. But now the Bolivians have taken home advantage to another level. The country's highest city, El Alto, 4,100 metres above sea level. Grass doesn't even grow up here. Bolivia have not lost here yet. The longest unbeaten run in any professional league ever belongs to Red Star Belgrade, or Crvena Zvezda if you must. They've gone 7 years without defeat at the Rajko Mitic in Serbia's Superliga. Their fans are pretty intimidating as well, but they're not as loud as this mob. Galatasaray's Ali Sami Yen Stadium's officially the loudest in world football. In a derby with Fenerbahce, Galatasaray fans set a Guinness World Record of 131 decibels. That's louder than Motorhead, and pretty tough to carry out your manager's instructions when you can't even hear them. However, our most intimidating away day is in Wales, where cameras can't enter and players can't leave. HMP Prescoed. This prison team was briefly kicked out the Gwent League over concerns about young opposition having to go in there. Now that's a tough place to go.
Early June 1939, Germany, always a tough place to go to.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody, to the third and final hour of tonight's edition of Trans Europe Express, the third and final hour of the 2025 journey for the Trans Europe Express. I'm Danny Kelly. With me, as always, is my co-pilot Andy Brassell. We've got lots to get through in this final 60 minutes. Tim Vickery will join us from South America very soon. Tony Afoki has been out for the start of AFCON in Morocco. We'll also be talking about the news that Edison Cavani, who's played with some of the biggest clubs in the world and with such distinction, has announced his retirement from football. Then Andy will take us around some of the other stories from the other leagues happening in the last few days here in Europe and beyond. Welcome one, welcome all to your last hour for 2025 of Trans Europe Express. And it's easy to be sentimental this time of year, but I say it without no sentiment at all. It is a fact. The show wouldn't be the show without our regular visits to South America to get hold of the wit and expertise of Tim Vickery. Good evening, Tim.
Evening, gentlemen. Did I hear right there? Have you sent a Foki out to the AFCON?
Yeah.
You sent someone with a beard, a finger in his ear, an Aaron sweater, singing songs about leaving Liverpool never to return. I don't see the join at all.
If only I could arrange that kind of Venn diagram overlap between two of my favourite things, AFCON and folk music. If I could arrange that, Tim, I'd be there, dude. Listen, Tim...
Do you want a... this is the Trans Europe Express. Do you want a Brazil-Bardo link-up?
Go on, then.
It's pretty good, you know. The fishing village, it's about 3-4 hours down the road from Rio, called Búzios. It's Alan Brazil's favourite haunt. He absolutely loves the place. It is the creation of Brigitte Bardot. When she came over at the height of her fame, early 60s, to Rio, and the press just wouldn't leave her alone. And she discovered this place. She had a mate who was a mate of the Argentine consulate, this hidden little fishing village. And she spent some time there, I think maybe summer of 64, summer of 63, something like that. And she just absolutely loved it. Loved it. And then she went back to France, and because she'd been there, the place just went boom. It became really commercialised, and so she went back the following year. They'd made her an honorary citizen, and she absolutely despised it. You know, it was everything that she was trying to get away from. So she never went back as long as she lived. But you find that the cinema there is named after her. The coastline is named after her. There's a statue of her there, and she never went back. But she launched Búzios, and she launched Alan Brazil's favourite resort.
You know what, Tim? I think that's what Endrick Mania is going to do for Lyon in the next 6 months. He is the modern Bardot.
Sorry, Tim, you're not joking. Alan Brazil's favourite place is called Búzios.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yes, you couldn't make it up, could you?
Okay. I thought you were making it up, but there you are.
It is absolutely true. I remember doing radio with him many years ago. I'd never been there. And he absolutely lambasted me for not having been to Búzios. Since then, my better half has forced me to go the last 2 or 3 years. And he's absolutely right. It is wonderful.
All right, Tim, let's talk about South American football in the year 2025. And I guess when we asked you what you'd like to talk about, want to talk about the World Cup qualifiers, which has seen a lot of South American teams qualify, of course, but also a cultural change caused by one particular match between the two biggest teams in South America.
Yes, and I think you saw it back in March.
I was watching the game, yeah.
Indeed, Argentina 4, Brazil 1. Argentina unlucky to get only 4, Brazil lucky to get 1. It was a performance that was worse than the 7-1. It was. The 7-1 was basically humiliation that happened in the course of 10 mad minutes. This was 90 absolutely deplorable minutes of football, one of the biggest canings you could possibly imagine. And it finally opened the door for something that's, for about 20-25 years, it's from the point where they struggled like mad to make the 2002 World Cup, which they ended up winning. There's been this debate about foreign coaches. What do you reckon? And obviously the old guard spends most of its time saying no. But it has now happened. On the back of that 4-1 defeat, the coach was Dorival Jr. He was the last hope of the old guard. He was a fiasco, and out he came. And in has come Carlo Ancelotti, who has, in the short time available, brought about significant improvements. Whether Brazil are going to be up to winning the World Cup, there are questions about them that we won't be able to find out until the day, which is, can what he's trying to do work in the conditions of insane heat in which some of this World Cup will be played? Can he really play 2 wingers, 2 up front, leaving only 2 in central midfield, one of whom will be the 34-year-old Casemiro, who's his first name on the team sheet? Can that work? Or will they have to play extra men in midfield? It was a dilemma for Dorival as well. It's the reason that they were so unbalanced in that lambasting that they took to Argentina. How do you get the best out of what Brazil have at the moment? And the best of them isn't in central midfield. You know, the best of them is wingers. So you want to get wingers in. Can you balance out the side that way? We will. I suspect we're going to have a lot of fun finding out.
And Argentina are world champions, right?
They are.
But there's a part of me, Tim, that thinks if I had to pick a South American winner of the World Cup, or a team to go deep, semi-finalists in the World Cup, right now I'd be more inclined to look at Brazil because I have such faith in Ancelotti than I would Argentina. Is that stupid?
No, I don't think it is. And Argentina are the best side. I mean, the 6 rounds of qualifiers that we had this year, they were by some distance the best side statistically. They won 4 of those 6 games. They've kept on winning games afterwards. In many ways, their build-up has gone sensationally well, really over the last 4 years, because they've found ways to not be dependent on Lionel Messi. There have been times, and that 4-1 win over Brazil was certainly one of them, when they have been even better without Lionel Messi. But it's the same defensive unit that it was in the last World Cup, and there's an extra knockout round this time round. And it nearly let them down so often, you know, in Qatar. Can you really imagine them getting through all of those knockout rounds? Surely once that defence is going to collapse, and it's going to really cost them. They are also trying to do what has never been done before. No one has ever retained the World Cup outside of their own home continent. It's never been done before. Although, and I heard you fine gentlemen saying that your list of 3 is all European. Every time that the World Cup has been in North America, South America has won it. So Argentina should be there or thereabouts. But again, if I have to bet on which of those 2 is going to go further, I suspect you might be right. Certainly on Argentina would love to have Brazil's resources at centre-back. There are other teams as well. I mean, the second best team in qualifying this year in those 6 rounds, wait for it, Paraguay. The man in the navy suit, Gustavo Alfaro, is one of the miracle workers of international football. He was a late discovery as an international coach. Took Ecuador to the last World Cup. Did good things very briefly with Costa Rica. Held Brazil to a draw in the Copa America in the middle of last year. And he's done wonders with Paraguay. He's an absolute national hero. Paraguay are not going to go all the way, but they're competitive. And 2 other teams who really stand out. Ecuador, the only team unbeaten in those last 6 rounds of World Cup qualification. Ecuador have gone 15 games unbeaten, and yet the coach is under intense pressure. Sebastian Becasecchi, another Argentine coach. The reason being they don't score goals, but they don't concede very many, if any. Colombia are 9 games unbeaten, and Colombia do have a bit more up front than Ecuador have, although they are over-dependent on the James Rodriguez, Luis Diaz double act. But 9 games unbeaten, they want some looking out for as well. The one I haven't mentioned from the automatic qualifiers is Uruguay, because they are in a sorry state. They didn't do very well. They were second a year ago, and they collapsed. They only won 2 of their last 6 games, lost 2 of them, and things haven't got any better. And the last time out, they were shellacked 5-1 by the United States, and the United States weren't at full strength, giving Marcelo Bielsa an excuse to call a press conference and drone on about his failings for a full 2 hours. Uruguay's next opponents, I think, are England at Wembley, and that's going to be very, very interesting, because if they get another shellacking, which is possible, you wonder if a change of coach will be inevitable. So there's a lot for Uruguay to play for in the March friendlies.
I, like you guys, wonder if the better defence will have the upper hand when it comes to the World Cup, simply at the end of a long European season and, well, in football globally where players are playing so many games. But looking forward to the World Cup, Tim, I mentioned Endrick before, who will be hoping to use this 6 months at Lyon to get himself into Ancelotti's plans for the World Cup. He's been completely overtaken in 2025 by another Palmeiras graduate, hasn't he?
I think we're having a little bit of trouble there with Tim there, which would be a shameful end to his contribution in 2025. I think you're referring there, Andy, to the emergence of Estevao.
Yeah, exactly. And he's been amazing this year. I suppose since Gabriel Jesus, of course, he's had so many injury problems in recent years. He was the one who really set the tone for players coming directly from Brazil to the Premier League and having an instant impact. I guess he was the first who really did that. But Estevao has been fantastic at big moments for Chelsea already and will continue to be so. Of course, very different position he plays to Endrick, who's very much get your shot off and that is his thing. But be really interesting to see if Brazil have better defensive or more eye-catching offensive options by the time it gets to the World Cup, or whether Richarlison ends up scoring the goal of the tournament all over again like he did in Qatar.
Well, he's certainly in decent form, offside decisions notwithstanding at the moment. But then he's one of those players, isn't he? He has 10 games where he's absolutely unstoppable, then 10 games when you wonder how he ever got into a professional football team, and vice versa.
Just before we let this go, yes, Danny, we have to say Tim's not here for us to actually say it to him. What a contribution in 2025. No, he's just the best.
I say, I don't think this show would be, and so we get so many lovely communications about how much people enjoy the show. Without him, his personal way of being and his knowledge of South American football, I think we would be a three-legged dog. And that's, I know he only does 20 minutes, but what a 20 minutes is. We were, before his line went down, we were going to ask him about the latter couple of seasons of the career of Edison Cavani there with Boca Juniors in Argentina, because the great man has announced his retirement from football. We'll talk about that in about 15 minutes' time here on Trans Europe Express. But next, we're going to be joined live from the AFCON in Morocco. Okay, if you're as mad about international football as myself and Andy, and if you're just a casual observer, you'll know that the African Cup of Nations is in full swing finally in the wonderful country of Morocco, with its half Atlantic, a bit of Mediterranean coastline. It's absolutely proximity to Europe, and of course in various times the two continents have been joined together across that Straits of Gibraltar, and so much more. It must be, we've started, it's up and running. And I'm delighted to say that therefore talkSPORT in person, and joining us now is Tony Afoki. Hello, Tony. Hello, Tony.
Hi, Ed. How are you?
Really, really good. First of all, first question from me, if I may. Just give us a flavour of what it's like to be in Morocco for the tournament.
Well, as I said last time on your show, Morocco, the weather was absolutely terrible while I've been in Fez. It's slightly got a bit better. There hasn't been that much rain. So I know over the Christmas period, there was actually some dry spells, but it's still quite a bit cold. I'm in Fez at the moment, and an hour away we actually had a white Christmas, even though they don't really celebrate Christmas over there, but it was snowing just an hour away from me. So yeah, Morocco, there's been so many different types of weather I've seen in this small time in the AFCON so far, but it's been a brilliant tournament and I've enjoyed the vibrancy of the country so far.
And Tony, you need a monster game for the tournament to really take off. We got that yesterday with Nigeria and Tunisia, didn't we? With the big guns notably firing for Nigeria.
Yeah, 100%. I was at that game in Fez yesterday, and being of Nigerian descent, it's probably one of the best 60-odd minutes I've seen Nigeria ever play in person. I spoke to the manager, Eric Shell, after, and he said it's one of the best 75 minutes he's seen any of his teams play. And what a game it was. You had Ademola Lookman's firing, Osimhen scoring, Nigeria looking really good against a good Tunisia side who dealt with Uganda in their first game. But then Tunisia got one back, and then there was the VAR controversy. The game had everything. For the neutrals, it must be great. For me, that was watching as a Nigerian fan, it was squeaky bum time towards the end.
One of the things I've always loved over the years, Tony, about AFCON is unpredictability. Smaller teams cause upsets. The big teams often stumble and wobble their way through the tournament, or just as likely out the tournament. So far as my inexpert eye can see, all of the favourites are making reasonably serene progress.
Yeah, this is honestly one of the first AFCONs I've watched where the big teams are actually doing their job. And it's funny that, because everyone thinks, like, you know what, as tournaments go, big teams get in, and the whole thing about the AFCON is that it never goes through. If people remember, Ivory Coast, who hosted it last year, lost their second game to Equatorial Guinea 4-1 and only got through with a minus goal difference and ended up winning the tournament. And this was like by knocking out Senegal as well. And right now, all the big guns have done really well. Nigeria already through, Algeria already through, Egypt looked good. So it's looking like, you know what, in the round of 16 so far, there might be some really big teams out there, and no massive upsets just yet. But we're going to the last match days of the group stages, so let me not talk too tough, but right now it's going well.
And Tony, we had a special visitor today to Ivory Coast, Cameroon, one of the big clashes in this first round. Kylian Mbappe, who of course could have ended up playing for one of those teams if he'd have wanted to.
Yes, 100%. Kylian Mbappe was at that game since his father's of Cameroonian descent, and it was nice to see. He was also joined by Aurelien Tchouameni, and Barcelona's Jules Koundé was there as well. It was nice to see some people watching the AFCON, and you've seen a lot of people actually. A lot of the French team watched AFCON as well. For those that don't know, Lucas Zidane is the Algerian keeper who's the son of Zinedine Zidane, and he's been watching his son in the Algeria games as a proud father. So you've been seeing a lot of the big profile names in football coming to watch the AFCON, which has been really good.
Among the results that have happened, Sudan won a game. Tony, explain the importance of that victory.
Yeah, it was really important. Sudan beat Equatorial Guinea today just by the 1 goal, and it was an own goal. But what an important victory for Sudan. Not only that, they have won the AFCON back in the 70s, but for those that don't know, Sudan have been in civil war since 2023. And the fact that a country that can go through civil war at the moment, with stadiums being destroyed and be repurposed, and their domestic leagues having to play in Rwanda and countries elsewhere, the fact that they got a win today just shows some resilience and just shows that despite what's going on with the country, people can come together and still celebrate and still have something to celebrate. So it was a very big win for Sudan today and for the people of Sudan.
And a team that looked like they'll be on the way home, though, Gabon, after their latest defeat. They've lost their first 2 now, Tony. And let's be honest, Galatasaray and Marseille are going to be very happy to be reunited in double quick time with Mario Lemina and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Yeah, 100%. Gabon was a weird one. I thought Gabon would be one of the teams that, even though you don't expect them to be one of the favourites, they'll be one of the dark horses, especially with the likes of Mario Lemina. I remember watching Nigeria, Gabon take Nigeria to the extra time in the recent World Cup playoffs before they got knocked out of DR Congo. But Gabon have just been really, really bad. And it was weird. In one of the first games, the manager made a substitution 20 minutes into the game, bringing on Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Mario Lemina, which you're thinking, I guess we did know that Aubameyang was injured and we didn't expect him to play. So I guess that, but Mario Lemina as well. So this is it. Credit to Galatasaray. Marseille will probably be thanking the Lord, thinking, you know what, that these guys are going to come back quite early.
Tony, give us the lowdown on what we should be looking out for in the next few days. Many of us still in Europe getting through the festivities, and with a few hours to spare to watch football on the TV. What are the games you're looking forward to in the next few days?
I'm looking forward to Zambia to Morocco tomorrow as well, just because Zambia, even though that they feel like one of the lesser teams of AFCON, this is a team that have won the AFCON before, back in 2012, which was one of the biggest surprises of the tournament. However, they haven't seemed to win. They haven't won a game since that 2012 win. So even though they've got the host Morocco tomorrow, they're a side that is still resilient, that you just can't walk over. So Zambia-Morocco is a good game that I'm going to be watching for. Obviously, the Leicester, Patson Daka, will be playing for Zambia and looking to get on the score sheet. Also, Zimbabwe versus South Africa as well. That's what I'm looking forward to. Zimbabwe hasn't had the greatest of tournaments, and even though South Africa felt like they got wronged by that Egypt result as well, just going into Group B, I feel like those are the 2 games I'll be looking forward to tomorrow, and seeing where the tables lie and who's going through. And you know, when you start to look at the tournaments and okay, if this team finishes third, because for those that don't know, the AFCON got to 24 teams over the past couple of years, so now the third place team goes through as well, which never used to happen. So this will be interesting, these last few games. You're going to be looking at all the permutations coming very soon.
And Tony, listen, we'll be back to you for more next Sunday, no doubt. Remember to never leave without your sun hat and your umbrella, apparently, Morocco this time of year. It's been great hearing from you firsthand from the AFCON. Tony Afoki there, everybody, and more from Tony next week. Next, we'll be turning our attention to the fact that Edison Cavani, at various times a great player over the last 2 decades, has announced his retirement.
26k for 2026 on talkSPORT.
Obviously, there's something that comes off that, yes? Yeah, talkSPORT are giving you the chance to win £26,000 in 2026. Head to talksport.com/win to find out how to enter. So, Andy, a little bit out of the blue today, although he is 38 years of age, Edison Cavani, who's had, I think, a brilliant career in football, both at club level and internationally. These days was making his living in Argentina with the great club Boca Juniors. But Edison Cavani has announced his retirement. And I think it would be wrong for Trans Europe Express to allow that event to go unmarked because, as I say, in a career that has taken him variously to Napoli, Paris Saint-Germain, Manchester United, Valencia, Boca more recently, and without ever being acknowledged as one of the glitzy or glamorous superstars of the game, any team with Edison Cavani in it was a better team.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think what was clear, what you could grasp from watching one match of his is actually what he was all about, because he gave everything to every game. The star player with no ego who could do it all, really. A player who sacrificed a lot of what might have been his desires to be the star of the team in various places, particularly at Paris Saint-Germain, to give everything for that team, to cover every blade of grass. I think we think of mainly that part of his career from 2017, where he's already well established at Paris Saint-Germain, really well established in the hearts of the fans, as well as one of the best strikers in European football. That he was always the one that had to give after the arrivals of Neymar and Kylian Mbappe, just as he had when Ibrahimovic arrived, playing out on the wing. You know, the guy who was born to be the centre forward, the superstar, but actually had the humility to take a back seat for everyone else, to stop taking the penalties, all those other things that he had to endure. And he did it with dignity, he did it with a stiff upper lip, and he did it while still producing for the teams under different eras of PSG. Of course, his story in European football doesn't start there, but I think really when you look at his numbers, whilst undeniably impressive, they could have undoubtedly been better had he not run so much. If he was just one of those guys who stayed in the box and accepted the chances, he was as good as finishers got. But he's never really credited with that because, you know, if you run the entire length of the pitch, it's quite hard to compose yourself to finish every single time. And he got this reputation as a misser of chances, which was really unfair because of that.
Well, particularly his numbers in Paris. We'll come back to his strengths in a minute, but those of you who are regulars will know that Lee Davey helps us prepare the show each week, and Lee is a big supporter of Paris Saint-Germain. And this is just he won't mind me reading this out. He put this into our WhatsApp group. He said, commenting on Cavani's retirement, "My favourite ever player at PSG, such a warrior, was the club's all-time leading goal scorer before Kylian eclipsed him, and one of the very few players that had his own personal song sung by the Ultras at PSG. A real rarity. Wasn't always treated the best and had to put up with a lot of nonsense from Neymar and Mbappe when they arrived, but probably the signing who garnered the most affection, this is critical, from PSG fans in the whole QSI era, alongside Javier Pastore." Now that is some kind of praise, because of course stats say one thing, PR says another, Andy. Trophies and awards say another. The fans have a total different view on the thing, and he was adored, particularly at Paris Saint-Germain. Whereas Lee points out, he set a pretty high bar for Kylian Mbappe as the club's leading goal scorer.
Yeah, he did, and it's because, and why fans at every club loved him, and I would include Manchester United in that, even if they got the back end of his career, is because it was evident that he was given everything, that he was super industrious, that he was a closer down of all defenders before that was fashionable or desirable for a lot of centre forwards. Now, of course, like Paulo Dybala after him, he really made his entrance into European football at Palermo, where he did pretty well. But he was no sort of academy product ingenue. He was 23 before he joined Napoli. And he wasn't an instant success there after initially joining on loan. But then when he did start to get his feet under the table, this was where Napoli started to become a serious team that people wanted to watch again, because, you know, you had the Maradona years, and then you had a lot of years in the wilderness. You had financial ruin. You had Aurelio De Laurentiis having to repackage and bring up the club, having saved it on a financial level. And it felt like in the post-Maradona period, and after the financial crash in Naples, he was the first guy who was a superstar in Naples all over again. And I say that with all due respect for Marek Hamšík, who, of course, was the first guy to beat Maradona's all-time goal-scoring record for the club before Dries Mertens subsequently broke it. But that was really about longevity. People loved Hamšík, of course, but Napoli, really, the first time those fans were really lifted into thinking, like, we have got a real star on our hands, someone who they took to their hearts and really lifted them.
Hang their support the club on, of course.
That was Cavani. He was an incredibly intense, implicated, exciting and brilliant player, really. And I think a lot of people thought he was destined to break that record of Maradona's, and it would have felt right, I think, another South American, especially such a brilliant one to watch, doing it. But of course there was that clause in his contract, which meant that for 64 million euros he could walk, and that's when PSG came in.
Yeah, and Andy, we talked about his club career here, and I'm sure that Manchester United fans look back on him as well with tremendous affection, because all football fans know that if you're a talented footballer, that's one thing, but if you ally almost Stakhanovite ferocious work rate to that, and courage, I think he's a very brave footballer as well, you're going to be a crowd favourite. But at international level, look, the world is changing and the rules are changing, which I say that with a certain degree of naughtiness. It is unlikely that Uruguay are ever going to win a major tournament again, although they may prove me wrong. But he was part of the team, the last Uruguayan team to win a big tournament, who went to Argentina, of all places, in 2011 and won the Copa Sudamerica there. Incredible.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, he ended up his career in Argentina, as you were saying before, as we'd hoped to speak to Tim about. Copa Libertadores runner-up in 2023. Went to the Club World Cup with them as well. Yep. And, you know, there were so many things that went against him in the last couple of years of his career. I mean, obviously, losing in the final of the Copa Libertadores is a heartbreaker. There was the fact that after he left Manchester United, where he was stymied by injury, which he kind of felt was his body paying the bill for everything he put in over the years, and the reason that fans loved him so much, he ended up paying for. Of course, he almost didn't end up making his Valencia debut because he was unloading his family's suitcases from the back of a car, and he shut his little finger in the boot, and he was under anaesthetic for 6 hours while he was looked at, and eventually pulled out of his sickbed to make his debut for Valencia. And he wasn't playing for a particularly good Valencia side after that, so that didn't last, and that's what led to him going for South America, back to South America. But it's remarkable when you think of Uruguay of this period, the fact that him and Luis Suarez were born in early 1987, within less than a month of each other. Cavani's the younger one by 3 weeks, I think it is, and they're both born not in Montevideo but in Salto in the northwest, a small town that was, until I think the late 19th century, classified as a village. It held about 110 and holds about 110,000 people. So a remarkable little quirk of fate. And Cavani is such an interesting player because he is one, as Lee captured so perfectly, one that all fans loved of all the clubs that he played at. But I think the contradiction of him, that he was that superstar that gave everything. I remember interviewing him for television once when he was at PSG.
Wow.
And he was 3 hours late. He was so late. And, you know, one of the press guys was trying to explain to me, well, you know, South Americans have a different level of timekeeping, certainly at PSG at the time. And I was looking at my watch thinking, yeah, I might miss my Eurostar back at this rate. And anyway, he turned up 3 hours late, and he just came in the door. There was a little bit of a flow of the hair, and he flashed that magic smile, and he went, "Lo siento," and it was fine. I'd forgotten all about it because he had such incredible charisma.
That's amazing, Andy. Thank you very much indeed for that. And what we'll say, I've no idea what he's going to do next in his life, but given the way he played the game, I think he does deserve a long rest, because if any footballer put effort into a game, it was Edison Cavani. He'll be missed. Thank you for your reminiscences as well. Heading for the finishing line here on Trans Europe Express for this year. Andy will take you around the leagues next. Thank you for listening to us, not just tonight, but throughout the year. Yeah, welcome back to the final 15 minutes or 10 minutes or so of Trans Europe Express for 2025 with me, Danny Kelly, and him, Andy Brassell. Andy, let's go around the leagues then. I think you want to start in Portugal, where partially because there have been some actual games of football this weekend, and partially because one of those games has dealt a severe blow to the title hopes of one of the big three.
Yeah, so both Sporting and Benfica played earlier tonight. Easy for Sporting, beat Rio Ave 4-0. Couple of goals, hat-trick for the other Luis Suarez there, the Colombian Luis Suarez, who's now up to 17 for the season. Of course, he's replacing Victor Gyökeres this season, nominally at least, and after a tough start has warmed up. But the earlier one, the bigger one, was Braga versus Benfica. And Benfica were 2-1 down at half-time. They ended up drawing 2-2, but Jose Mourinho, well, Jose going to Jose, isn't he? He was very unhappy with a certain person involved in the game. He said afterwards, good game, good opponents, and good referee. We won 3-2. It was a 2-2 draw, and he was very unhappy about Samuel Dahl goal that was disallowed for Benfica, going on about that later on. But the draws are becoming a problem with Benfica. And so you can't, if we're talking about old school giants of coaching, you can't Antonio Conte your way to the league in Portugal.
No.
Now, Benfica are still unbeaten in the Liga, actually. They've won 10 games. They've drawn 6. But that's way too many to draw, and the fact is, Porto. To put it another way,
that's 12 drop points in a league where that may not get you to the title.
Exactly. Sporting have lost a game, but they've only dropped 7. Now, Porto, of course, have only dropped 2. And they're at home tomorrow night to Aves, the bottom club, who are hopeless, to be honest. So it would be a massive shock if they did anything other than win that. And then they would go back to 5 points clear of Sporting and 10 clear of Benfica.
Yeah, I mean, that will take some catching in a league, as I say, where 3 defeats is a disaster if you're one of the big trident of teams at the top of the table. Now, they played in Belgium, Andy, on the 26th and 27th of the month. And just watching Crystal Palace today, looking cooked by their schedule, including Europe, that they weren't perhaps entirely prepared for. Much the same could be said for Union Saint-Gilloise. They're still leading, but man, they are puffing.
Yeah, they are. And all their players talked about it actually on Boxing Day after the 1-1 draw at Cercle Brugge, where they led and got pegged back, ended up 10 aside after Christian Burgess got sent off for a second booking late on, so he won't be playing in the next match either, their captain. And he's very influential. But a lot of their players talked about it. It said, we just can't wait for the break. We're absolutely dead on our feet. A couple of them were talking about. And especially as Club Brugge have had a little lift. Nicky Hayen was dismissed as coach, going back a couple of weeks and replaced by Ivan Leko. They've won 3 out of 3 in the league since then, and they won 5-3 at Genk, another team who've got rid of their manager recently, Torsten Fink, when on Boxing Day. It was a brilliant game. Alexander Stankovic, the younger son of Dejan Stankovic, who's having a good time out there, and much coveted. He scored the crucial 4th goal in that towards the end of the game. It was funny, actually, because when Hayen got sacked, it was a massive deal, because not only has he won stuff, but Rudi Garcia, the national team coach, came out and stuck up for him and said, look, I think Club Brugge are really ungrateful for firing him, and the Belgian FA told him to shut his face and keep his nose out of it, basically, because club football is nothing to do with you, which tells you everything you really need to know about the long-term future of Rudi Garcia. But look, Union have done such a brilliant job over the last couple of years. They've made Belgian football so exciting. But of course, this is their first year in the Champions League, so no wonder they're half dead. You know, this is not competing in the Conference League or the Europa League, 2 competitions which they've done pretty well in. So whether they can go and make some smart moves to help themselves out, and that's what they've been so good at down the years, and that's what's made them successful since they've been back in the top flight in the transfer window. We'll have to wait and see. But the thing is, they may be only 1 point clear, having had a substantial lead of 7 or 8 points going back a couple of weeks. But you know what? They know that doesn't matter anymore. They used to be, since they came up, the kings of doing it in the regular season, and then Club Brugge would get it done in the playoffs. Yeah. But now they know how to get it done in the playoffs.
Yeah, the hunter becomes the game, as they say, and all that.
Yes,
yes. Meanwhile, there have been no matches in Holland, Netherlands, but that doesn't mean that Ajax can't be doing drama, because, of course, they are the dramatic kings and queens of Dutch football these days. Another season that's drifting away in all kinds of odd directions. So Their solution, Andy, is to call upon the club's most revered name, Cruyff.
Yes, and when I initially read the headline earlier today, I thought, have I nodded off and woken up in 2005? You know, if there's near civil war at Ajax, of course there's a Cruyff involved. I mean, it goes without saying, doesn't it? But yes, Jordi has reached a verbal agreement to become the new sporting director of the club, something which they've really needed. Now, Alex Hertz, the previous sporting director, we knew he was going, but he said he would stay on very unenthusiastically until they'd found a replacement for him. They have found a replacement for him. We don't know exactly when he's going to take over from Hertz. But look, Jordi Cruyff had a really interesting career as sporting director. Did well, very well on paper at Maccabi Tel Aviv before, won a couple of titles there, albeit very, very well financially backed. And a few people around the club at the time suggested he talked a better game than he managed at times. Although he did appoint two very big name coaches, talking of how well financially backed they were, in Oscar Garcia, formerly of Brighton and Watford, of course, and Paulo Sousa. So it'll be interesting to see, because one of his first major jobs will be to appoint a new coach, because that's what they need after John Heitinger went. Fred Grimm has been stepping in the meantime. So Ajax have been sort of in this holding position. Even if the results have improved nominally over the last couple of weeks, it's going to be super hard for them to really mount a title challenge. But Feyenoord falling off in the last couple of weeks maybe does open the door to a Champions League place if they could get it right. But it's a really big if, and there's a lot of pressure on him, and one man's not going to fix it all.
And Andy, we haven't scripted this, but it wouldn't be Trans-Europe Express, not just the final show, the final hour and the final minute of the show, if it wasn't about Mauro Icardi.
Well, look, Danny, one of my biggest disappointments of 2025, and I don't want to go out on a downer from this wonderful year that I've really enjoyed with you and all the team who are brilliant for us week after week after week, Jack and Harge and Kitch. But the fact that I haven't managed to get a Icardi watch over the line is something that will always live for me. I will be committing to doing that again in 2026. And Mauro's on board with me, and so are Galatasaray, because after so much speculation over his future in recent weeks, it looks like he will sign a new contract, a 2+1 deal, which will about halve his wages to 5 million net a year. But when we talk about sporting versus cultural, as we have so many times in the show tonight, in the last couple of weeks, Galatasaray fans have made it clear that Mauro Icardi is a cultural icon for him. And even if he's second fiddle to Victor Osimhen, he needs to stay. He's been important in the revival of Galatasaray culturally, as much as sports-wise, over the last couple of years, that he's someone a bit like Cavani in a very different way, a South American who's fully committed to the ideal and the cause. And he means a lot more to the club than just football.
Listen, Andy, thank you very much indeed for that. Speaking of South Americans, in our poll tonight, we asked who was the best South American striker in their prime. I mean, these are recent players. People moaning about the lack of Pele. 72% if you go for Luis Suarez, which left poor old Edison Cavani, Gonzalo Higuain and Radamel Falcao lying in a heap. Good job we didn't include the first Ronaldo in there, because I know who I would have been voting for. But thank you for voting for us in that. You've already said thank you to our producer, Jack, our assistant producer, Harjot, and our regular engineer, Kitch, without whom there could be no show. And Andy, it remains for me to thank you personally for all you've done over the last 12 months. It's been fantastic, and I enjoy working. I love doing the show anyway, but doing it with you is one of the highlights of my life and career. I'm back tomorrow at 1 o'clock I'll be sitting in for Paul Hawksby on Hawksby and Jacobs. Most of all, I want to thank the rest of you for listening to us. What's the point of this, just shouting into the void, as I often say? Thank you so much for listening to Trans-Europe Express here on talkSPORT. Up next is White and Jordan's Christmas special, if you can imagine such a thing. God bless you all, and good night.